Tension on deck.
Hey, good evening, Ron. I throw right back to you, right? See how everybody's asking about your wife. So I hope everything's doing well.
Thank you, everybody. Welcome to the Thursday edition of the Executive Perspective. So I know there's only a few people on right now, but wife's doing well. Yesterday, just before the show, wife got injured. Had to run her to the doctor to get her finger put back together. But she's doing well. She thanks everybody for the thoughts, the prayers, and the interest in her well-being. So thank you very much for that. We appreciate it. And all is good. So we're here today. Let's see how Thursday night works out. We see Pat Donahue already there. Lily, appreciate you in the comments already. Hassan, the original Mo, but that was at 4:30 in the morning, so he might be sleeping. Oh no, it was 4:35 p.m. I'm looking at the 04:35. See, I'm getting like you now, Rob. I'm doing Rob on it. So it's Terry Renane. Thank you very much, everybody. So everything's well with that. We really appreciate it. And Mike Freed, appreciate you also. So we're gonna while we're staying on the personal note, I do want to just make mention on a personal note. Back in January, my sister-in-law's brother had passed away. I've been close and I've been family with his family since I was in the 7th grade. That's when we all met. My brother and his now wife started dating way back then. Have been married ever since. So he died in January. Darren Jervis. I was friends with him. Lived next door to him for a few years. Funny guy, clown. Like everybody else, like all of us, not a perfect person. But he was a New York State court officer, and well, that's his signature there. That's his signature, hello, and everything else. But the last few years, he became ill, wasn't doing well. I saw him briefly when I was in Texas. He was because my brother and his wife down in Texas, he was staying with them for the last couple of years. He became ill. He wasn't doing really well. After I left Texas in November, he took a turn for the worse, wound up in the hospital, and never left. So didn't bring it up on the show, but just to be honest, yesterday, for some reason, I was thinking of Darren. We used to play cards together. We used to hang out together. For those of you on Staten Island, spent a lot of time on Bay Street together. A lot of fun times in areas a little later on down in Texas with his double signature. But so on January 8th, Darren passed. So I just want to let Darren's family know, Danielle, my sister-in-law Danny, and my brother Ed. So this is Darren in the middle with his mom, Camille, who passed during COVID, my sister-in-law on the end, and then his two brothers, Christopher and Serge. So listen, Darren is with his mom, Camille, his dad, Frenchie, and so hopefully he's resting peacefully. And just want to let the family know that he's not forgotten. We love you, we support you, and just thanks for that 2 seconds to get into it. So lot going on in the world, right? We have Saturday morning, Operation Epic Fury took off with the United States and Israel attacking Iran and taking out their supreme leader. And a lot of the, upper echelon of the regime, which continues through the strikes, very targeted strikes. And, it's there's got a lot of talk going on, a lot of stuff going on in the news. There's obviously going to be ramifications around the world, in the region, and as well as back here at home. We're going to get into a little bit later. We're going to get into how it's going to could possibly affect us here in New York City and law enforcement, local law enforcement as a whole. What we think of the preparedness of the NYPD, the training of the NYPD, and what the members should be looking out for.
Yeah, I mean, just, my heart goes out to you. Is it your brother-in-law, was he, or he
Well,
was?
yeah, I always considered my brother-in-law because I've always been so close to the family. Like I said, since I'm a kid, I'm a kid. We met when I was in the 7th grade or 8th grade, and my family bought a little candy store on Nelson Avenue in Staten Island, and they lived in the area, and we're in the area. My brother had met Danielle. They all kind of worked at the store at one point or another. But we grew up together. We basically grew up together. At one point, I actually lived in an apartment in a house next door to them for a few years. So I always considered him my brother-in-law, but it's technically my sister-in-law's brother.
Okay.
Thank you.
I mean, yeah, sad, very sad. But hey, the $1 million question tonight is to you, and it's just for clarification purposes. There wasn't a domestic incident report from your wife's injury yesterday, was there?
No. I was upstairs here. It was 7 minutes
All right.
before 7 minutes before the show went live. So I was up here already putting things up into the studio, and heard a lot of commotion downstairs, and then had to contact you and you come up with a plan on what we were going to do. So no.
All right. I was just concerned because we all know that, if she
When
cut
is my
herself
daughter going to realize?
if she cut herself with a knife, it would be a felony, but it would have been classified as a misdemeanor anyway in this great city of ours. So I was just curious. That's all.
No
No
domestics.
DIR. All
No
right,
DIR.
very good.
But thank you to everybody who's continuing to ask. I really appreciate that. Thank you so much. But
Then
yeah, so
we woke up, right? We woke up to epic fury, right? It was the middle of the night.
yeah, very early Saturday morning, right? For us, and it was 1:30 in the morning, I think, and 7:30 in the morning, Iran time. And yeah, you wake up and you kind of knew it was coming. You saw the posturing of the Navy on both sides, the warning for people to leave the region, American citizens to leave the region. So, you knew it was coming, and a lot of stuff is being spoken about. Like I said, a lot of the senior leadership was taken out during the initial strike, was taken out in strikes since then. They're striking all the neighboring areas around the Middle East. And, we did have the one base in Kuwait that was hit by a missile, and we lost 6 service members. So prayers up to these service members who range in the age of 20 years old. Sergeant Cody, he joined the Guard when he was 18 years old, up to Chief Warrant Officer Marzan, who I believe was 54 years old. Nicole Lamar, the mother of 2. So this is war, and it's unfortunate. We're losing service members already, and there's a lot to it. There's a lot to it. To be honest with you, we're going to talk a little bit about the politics of it. We're focused on the law enforcement side and how the local law enforcement should be trained up and on high alert. We'll talk about high alert and what high alert really is, and we'll get into that. But really, to get more of a geopolitical view, I really think that people should go back and watch the 10-4 Tavern from Tuesday night. They had Morgan Wright was on the show. He's a former Kansas City local police officer who transitioned to state police. Now he's a world-renowned national security strategist. You can see him on all the major networks. He's a cybersecurity expert. He's the CEO of the National Center for Unsolved Cases. He was an Army brat. He grew up, spent time in Iran as a child. His father was based out there. He was there in 1979 at the start of the Iranian Revolution. He was there during the hostage crisis. So a lot of knowledge came out Tuesday night. And the guy's funny as hell too. So yeah, I really suggest you go back, take a look at that recorded episode of the 10-4 Tavern. You can find that on the Finest Unfiltered Network on the YouTube channel. So, but as far as we're concerned, we're more going to speak on the law enforcement, the local law enforcement, right? But like you said, this is what we woke up to on Saturday morning and during the day on Saturday.
For us at this hour, Trey.
Yeah, Sandra, we just got this in literally 2 minutes ago, but Fox News can confirm that Iran's supreme leader, the Ayatollah Khamenei, is dead following Israeli strikes against his compound and location earlier today. A senior Israeli official confirming this news. Earlier tonight, Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu describing the strikes not only against the supreme leader, but against much of the Iranian leadership.
So, yeah, that comes out and, you start thinking, oh boy, here we go. What were your initials?
Yeah, no, you hope that everything goes well for all the servicemen and women that are, fighting the fight. We're flying over hostile territories. We're flying, with permission of other countries. I was glad to see that there was a lot of support from the other countries, even though they were maliciously bombed for no reason, right? I mean, you look at, I think it was Dubai, a hotel, and a couple other places. They had no involvement at all. And, just hopefully we don't have to put, troops on the ground because, that's where we end up losing a lot of people. But I think there's already troops on the ground from, I think it's the Iraq, had some army going in also. I think some of the IDF was going in. So hopefully they'll be able to take care of business. What cracks me up is that like they try to pick a new supreme leader and they got that guy
2 hours later.
That was
his son.
Imagine them nominating you and you're like, whoa, hey, I don't want it. No, that's you. No way, man. No way. I'm not taking it. And you're looking up. So I think it was Babylon B I follow on Facebook or whatever, and they put out a post like the Iranians picked the next supreme leader that is already dead, so they didn't have to worry about the person being killed.
I tell you, it's and then how about you talk about strategy, you talk about listen, Iran is one of the more modern countries in the Middle East, and I don't know. There's this thing called Zoom, right? So when you get all the upper echelon together in one location while you're under attack to try and come together to figure out who your next supreme leader is going to be, that didn't work out very well for them because intelligence found out about it. They struck it and they took out all those leaders. I think Zoom might have been a better choice for them there. You know, listen, you'll never see the president and the vice president on the same plane for that reason. Very rarely are they, unless it's a very, very secure location, together at the same location. Yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting. And then well, interesting is an interesting word, because I find a lot of what our mayor, my mayor, Mamdani, does to be very interesting. Had hopes, not feeling very positive about the things that are going on and the choices that are being made and the choices that are being picked for his cabinet and his administration. Let's hear what his response was to the start of Operation Epic Fury.
Strikes by the United States and Israel mark a catastrophic escalation.
Mayor Ron Mamdani slammed the U.S. and Israel missile attack on Iran's military bases, nuclear sites, and leadership.
In an illegal act of war, of aggression, bombing cities, killing civilians, opening up a new theater of war. Americans do not want this.
Iran swiftly retaliated with strikes on U.S. bases and Israeli targets, fueling fears of a wider Middle East firestorm just hours after President Trump's green light. President Trump hailed the assault as a massive and ongoing push to dismantle Iran's missile stockpile and topple its regime, posting on social media that it's preemptive payback for secret nuclear threats to America's allies. Mamdani demands peace over bombs.
Americans do not want another war in pursuit of regime change. We want an answer to the affordability crisis. We want peace.
Governor Hochul says the state is boosting police at religious and cultural sites after the U.S. strikes on Iran to keep people safe. She released this statement in part, quote, "While there have been no specific credible threats to New York identified, we continue to monitor online activity for any potential threats, and we encourage New Yorkers to remain vigilant and report suspicious activity," end quote. Mamdani echoes the governor and outlines safety measures for the city.
I've been in close contact with our police commissioner and emergency management officials. We are increasing agency coordination as well as patrols of sensitive locations out of an abundance of caution.
And with NYPD ramping up patrols, he left this message to the Iranian community.
You are a part of the fabric of this city. You are our students, our artists, our small business owners, our neighbors, our community leaders. You will be safe here.
Muted.
Listen, I got a Marlin out of it, right? There we go.
Marlon's on. Marlon's in the chat too.
Marlin, you're rubbing off on us, brother. Well, Juju, we're gonna welcome you to the chat. And Juju says I never liked him anyway. No, I was not a fan. Obviously, I don't believe he's doing great. In Juju's book, he's doing great. That's not a book I'm going to be purchasing. But welcome to the show, and thanks for your support of the show. Listen, it's a First Amendment platform. Everybody's entitled to their perspective and their opinions. But comments that I want to highlight from that, his statements, and it's some things that the Democrats are trying to push the narrative that it's an illegal act of war, right? And that he is speaking on the death of civilians. No one wants to see the death of civilians. And, it's an unfortunate thing that when you have a military conflict of this magnitude, the location that the enemy embeds itself into, there are going to be civilian casualties. But what really kind of, before I get into the illegal portion of it, and we'll touch on, that you know. But why wasn't Mamdani making any statements when the Khomeini regime was killing upwards of 30,000 of their own civilians who were protesting against the regime? That's something that just blows my mind, that you have people that are protesting. Listen, I understand people want to protest that, we don't want to be at war. We don't want, they don't want the United States to be the world police. I get those arguments, but you're going to protest and you're going to say that our strikes are going to cause, the death of innocent civilians when you have his regime slaughtering their own people.
Yeah, sad. I mean, you think about protesters. I mean, you think about, like, Morgan Wright brought up a great point the other night on 10-4 Tavern. How many people were killed in Tiananmen Square, right? And nobody really knew the answer, but there was a large amount. But they actually covered that up, So this wasn't covered up, though. This was broadcasted, and a lot of people spoke about it. So there was a lot of people that were demonstrating, and they were killed. And a lot of people in this country, particularly from one side, I would say, didn't condemn it, didn't say anything about it, didn't talk about the, close to 40 years of things that have happened, that have been done by Iran to us against American citizens, against American soldiers. But that wasn't spoken about. All of a sudden, and what all the other presidents did, the money exchange from Obama. Obama drew many lines in the sand. He drew so many lines in the sand. He was started at the ocean, and by the time he was done drawing the lines in the sand, he was at the boardwalk, and there was probably raccoons around him. But all I'm saying is that there's so much, hatred for this war, but there's things that led up to it. And if in fact they weren't stopping their enriching of uranium and going to have a nuclear bomb, what would that have done? Would we rather have put people in harm's way here, in other countries, even countries closer to them, our allies? So, I mean, I just don't understand how, that atrocities that were going on in that country wasn't spoken about. And then suddenly you take out the supreme leader and his top cabinet, and suddenly people are marching down the streets of city of New York, proclaiming that, we shouldn't be at war with Iran. Well, there's numerous reasons why I think that we should be at war with Iran. So that's where I stand on that,
Yeah. And just to your point, Juju, here, where you say a Marine was forcibly removed because he dared to say Americans shouldn't die for a foreign country, that's a disingenuous comment. He's a former Marine that was wearing his Marine uniform, who went and stood up and interrupted a hearing. Anybody who stood up and interrupted a hearing would have been removed. He was forcefully removed by his own volition because he refused to leave voluntarily when he was told to leave by the police. And when the police tried to escort him out, he violently resisted. He was injured because he stuck his hand in the door so that he could hold on, so he could continue to scream about freeing Palestine. So that's a disingenuous statement that you're making here about that. But to your point, yeah, I mean, listen, there's many reasons why we are, in the situation that we're in, that, one of the big things, it's typical hypocrisy. And again, I want to get past the politics of this. We're 25 minutes in. I want to get past the politics of it. And then, Juju, again, I'm not going to silence you in your voice and your comments. I'm going to bring them up like everybody else is. It's not a matter that we care about Iranians all of a sudden? Why is it that the loudest voices that care that we took out Khomeini and he's dead, now they're prancing around the streets, and we're going to get to those videos, holding up the sign and, you know, calling for globalizing the intifada and everything else? They all care that he was taken out, but they weren't out there protesting him and his regime when they were killing 30,000 innocent civilians. And you are an intelligent person. Our views obviously are on opposite spectrums, which is fine, but you're an intelligent, very educated person. And I'll say this. So we're supposed to, as a world, ignore the genocide of the people. And then what are we going to do? We're going to allow it to continue. No one's going to step in. No one's going to say anything. Sounds eerily familiar. Whereas I hear a lot of Democrats calling the Trump administration Nazis for deporting illegal immigrants that are in this country, and ICE and all of this. We've done other shows on that, and that's not what today's show is about. But to use the term Nazi there, but they're not using the term Nazis for people that are slaughtering anyone who stands up against their regime. Doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, I also think, you know, similar to the NYPD, where you're not allowed to really give your political opinion in uniform. There's a lot of procedures that you have to follow when you want to do something, particularly off duty in uniform. It actually goes all the way up to the police commissioner for approval. So, I mean, when you talk about a Marine that's wearing the United States uniform and stands up in the middle of a congressional hearing and disrupts it, well, I mean, there are repercussions. So I don't necessarily think that's silencing a Marine. What I think it is silencing somebody that's disrupting the actual hearing. If you want to go out in front of the steps of where they're having the hearing and state your points, fine. I don't know what the particular rules and procedure are for a Marine in uniform, and I was even hearing that this individual was a retired Marine and
Right.
not why. I mean, you can't say retired Marine. It's
Former
Marine. Yeah, former Marine or so. But you know, if I did that, if I wore my police uniform and walked in a congressional hearing and started screaming, I would probably be arrested right off the bat. I'd probably be arrested for impersonating a police officer, and then I was I'd be jailed for interrupting the congressional hearing. I mean, here in Florida, there was an individual that just told his neighbor that he was an active police officer, like I'm a cop, and he was a retired NYPD. The local police arrested him for impersonating. So I mean, you don't want to tell anybody, and God forbid you put your uniform on and start, spewing rhetoric. I just think it's appalling that the Marine did that. So he's entitled to his opinion, but you don't have to wear the uniform. That's my opinion, because then you represent, right? That's the reason we're not allowed to do things. But yeah, I think Mikey G's saying, I think the term is inactive Marine, right? Yeah, that's a good terminology, right? Inactive. Yep.
I've always heard it as former. You never retired. You're a former
Right.
Marine. But yeah, Mikey's got a couple of comments up there. Let's not forget about Beirut. There's a lot of things, but let's hear what
Just a quick point, just those two idiot Capitol Police who I think are sinful, the way they cried and slammed and stuff, and they still proclaim, the injuries and all this other BS from when the January 6th happened. So, I mean, you know what, you want to do things, you want to say things, you don't have to wear your uniform, or, you know, do it the right way, like everybody, other citizen that does it. So you're entitled to that, at least.
Yeah, no, listen, you're entitled to your First Amendment right to protest. You're allowed, if you want to get up and stand up there in that forum and shout out and interrupt a hearing, that's fine, but you're going to be removed. You're going to be removed. And if you're going to forcefully resist, you're going to be forcefully removed. So let's hear what our Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, had to say in regards to this.
Well, we did. We notified Congress. I mean, we notified the Gang of Eight. We notified congressional leadership. There's no law that requires us to do that. The law says we have to notify them 48 hours after beginning hostilities. We've done that. I think the notification went today. But we did notify members of Congress in advance. But we can't notify 535 members of Congress. And, well, the Congress can vote on whatever they want, but there's no law that requires us to do that. And I want to say something because I see people on TV. Look, that's fine. If they want to take a war powers vote, they can do that. They've done that. They've done that a bunch of times. But there's no, people keep saying that there's no law that requires the president to have done anything with regards to this. To begin with, no presidential administration has ever accepted the War Powers Act as constitutional. Not Republican presidents, not Democratic presidents. That said, we have followed the notification at 48 hours, and we're here today. I've done more Gang of Eight briefings than I got in the 4 years that Biden was president and I was a member of the Gang of Eight. All of that said, we've complied with the law 100%, and we're going to continue to comply with it.
So what he's talking about is the notification to the Gang of Eight. Well, let me take that down. Sorry. Sorry about that. So the Gang of Eight, you know, who are the current? It's you know, the chairman of the U.S. House Committee on Intelligence and the ranking member, right? Which is a Republican and a Democrat. So it's 4 Republicans, 4 Democrats. The Senate Committee on Intelligence, the chair, Tom Cotton, and the ranking member of Mark Warner, and the U.S. House, again, Mike Johnson, who's the speaker, and the minority leader, Hakeem Jeffries, and the majority leader and the minority leader, John Thune and Chuck Schumer. So those are the notifications that were made prior to the hostilities, as he put them, or prior to, you know, them going out. And what he's talking about, and what everybody's talking about, oh, it's illegal that the president doesn't have it. You know, we could, you know, we could talk about that, but again, go back to the 10-4 Tavern, you get a little more historical value out of it. But the War Powers Act, right, was enacted over President Nixon's veto following the Vietnam War. Its goals were to ensure the collective judgment of both Congress and the president. So this is the War Powers Resolution. Also, you hear most people you hear say the War Powers Act, right? There's a reporting requirement. And this is what Marco Rubio just said. The president must submit a report within 48 hours of deploying troops into hostilities or imminent hostilities, right? He did that. They notified them. And then within 48 hours, they notified Congress of what's going on. So then they have 60 days plus 30 days. You know, the 30-day extension is pretty much an automatic, because as long as they can say that, you know, for the safety of the troops, we need an extra 30 days, they'll keep them in for 90 days, unless Congress authorizes an extension or declares war, because the only people that can declare war is Congress, right? And they haven't, as Modern Samurai just said, they haven't declared war since World War II. Right? So all the hostilities, all of the acts of aggression, all of the conflicts that the United States have been involved in on both the Republican administrations and the Democratic administrations have basically not accepted the War Powers Resolution as law, has not accepted it as constitutional value that they must follow. So what they do is they basically, you know, It's like following the letter of the law and the spirit of the law. So they follow the spirit of the War Powers Resolution, and they do the notification. They go to Congress. If Congress does vote to remove the troops, the one thing is that the president does not have a veto power for that vote from Congress, right? So Congress can force removal of troops at any time by passing a concurrent resolution, which is not subject to a presidential veto. There you go. But it's never happened. And, you know, several times we've had conflicts. So let's take a look at that, right? These are notable strikes without congressional quote unquote authorization, right? Biden did it in 2021. He ordered the strikes in Iraq and Syria, you know, citing Iranian-backed militia groups responsible for recent attacks. Go back to Clinton. He used military force in Iraq, in Haiti, Bosnia, Afghanistan, the Sudan, Kosovo. H.W. Bush, he invaded Panama and Somalia. Reagan, Grenada. 2021, military strikes in Libya and dozens of unmanned drone strikes in Pakistan, right? Or as Obama always said, Pakistan, right? And then in 2017, President Trump also did it when missile strikes in Syria in response to the Syrian government's use of chemical weapons, as well as a strike back in August when he struck the nuclear locations where they were making the uranium in Iran.
Yeah, so it's not something that's uncommon. It's been used before, you know. So I mean, people are all up in arms about it. When you follow the procedure, right? So you follow the Constitution, you follow the War Act, you make the notifications, but because it's under a Republican president, because it's under a president that many people have a clear hatred for, not because of what he does, but for who he is. And it adds to the fact that they don't believe the war. But had this been done under, you know, Biden or Obama, then everybody would have been okay. You saw Nancy Pelosi in a previous statement defending Barack Obama using this exact same thing.
Oh,
yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Let's take a look.
Yeah, I believe so.
Let's take
Yeah.
a look. Let's go back to 2011.
Madam Speaker, Madam Leader, you're saying that the president did not need authorization initially and still does not need any authorization from Congress on Libya?
Yes.
Thank you, folks.
Thank you all very much.
There you go.
And then when that was brought up to Hakeem Jeffries, who was out saying how it's illegal and the president needs to have congressional approval, he's like, oh, why are we talking about that? We're talking about today. He was totally like befuddled by it. Like, I wasn't in Congress then. What difference does it make? The laws haven't changed from 2011 to 2026. So, you know, again, this is what we're dealing with when, you know, it becomes partisan and not just in what's in the best interest for the United States and in the United States interests. So, you know, were there, and listen, and I will agree, I've had this conversation, I will agree that the Trump administration needs to get on the same page. You have people, you have the Secretary of State, you have, you know, other leaders, you have the Secretary of War, and you have President Trump making statements as to the reason that this strike occurred. and they're giving different reasons, all of them valid reasons that brought together the overall decision, but they need to get on the same page as to what the mission statement is going to be as to why when they get out there. Now, again, I don't like stock answers. I don't like everybody to say the exact same thing. But listen, get your cabinet together. Listen, we're going to put this message out. Either put the message out through the press secretary, but if you're going to do pressers and go out in front of the cameras and answer these questions, be on the same page as to what the triggering effects were, or the triggering, things that were going on in the Middle East were that caused us to preemptively strike Iran. So that I will agree with. That I think that, we need to get a little more on the same page. You understand what I'm saying with that?
Yeah, well, what I think is the bottom line was, they felt that Iran was very close to nuclear production, whether, and the reason being, it doesn't matter who initiated it, right? Whether it was Benjamin Netanyahu and Israel said, we're going to strike, and then Merrick said, okay, we're going to jump in, or Trump said to Netanyahu, hey, it's time to strike, and then Israel jumped in. I mean, yeah, it's important, and they absolutely 100% should be on the same page, because you want the truth, right? Once you get a little bit of conflict between the two, you're prone to believe that what's the truth. So I totally agree. Yeah, you have to be on the same page. But the bottom line is why was it done? Well, it was done to prevent a nuclear attack on us, an attack on Israel, or whatever the case may be. But yeah, you should be on the same page. It goes back to with the NYPD, right? When a CO of a precinct gives some direction, you can't have the XO coming in and giving a different direction, right? Because that leads to confusion. Well, what is it? Who's running the command? Is the CO? Is it the XO? Which one's right? Which one's not right? So I mean, you have to be on the same page with everything. Whether you agree with the policy or not, all right? Even like when we talk about the NYPD, whether you not agree with the policy or not, you have to be on the same page. When it comes down from up above, if it's wrong, it's wrong, and you should fight it. But you don't fight it on the ground with the cops. You can't be telling the cops that this is wrong. If you're going to set forth the policy, push it forward, and then you battle it later on. So yeah, it definitely should be on the same page.
Yeah, Juju's putting out breaking news for us that the House blocked the bid to restrict Trump's war powers in Iran. He's heartbroken about it. Did anybody really expect anything different? There's never been a vote. Once you're there, you're involved. You've committed your troops. You've committed, to other countries that you're invested in this juncture. That Congress at this point is not going to come out and say, withdraw the troops. There's just too much intelligence to back why we're doing this.
It's funny though, but it failed in the Senate the other day. So I mean, they're saying if the House, okay, but it just failed in the Senate. So.
All right, so let's talk about. You have anything else on this? Let me see. Somebody's texting me. All right. Some people text during the show because they can't get into the comments. But I'll leave that one alone. All right. So anything else on the geopolitical side of it? Well, I really think that you need to go back and watch Morgan Wright on the 10-4 Tavern. He's got such great insight and information. It was a great conversation. I'll talk about it a little bit later. I was invited into the show during the show. Wasn't expecting it. But you got to go and watch that show.
Sorry to interrupt, but what did Jujo say? He said that they passed it, the House?
No. They failed.
They did.
right? Let
they
me go
felt-
back.
Yeah, I failed to block, because that's what I'm reading, that the intent to block President Trump from further military action against Iran without congressional approval, that was rejected by the House. So it's rejected by the House and the Senate.
Right.
Yeah.
So military, as Mike Freed says, military action will continue.
Right.
So again, so now anything else on that, Rob, before we bring it back home?
No, let's bring it home. Reel it back in there, guy. You let
Reel it
it
back
go
in.
on.
Good?
No, I said you let the line too much out. We're not catching no fish. You got to reel it back in.
Reel it back in. Yeah, let's bring it home. We got about 200 people watching. Those of you watching on X, we got a few people watching on Facebook. We encourage you to switch over to the YouTube channel so you can see the interactive chat. I can't get everybody's comments up on the screen for you to see, and I know when you're on your phone, or it may be a little difficult to see the comments sometimes and not really understand. It's a lot more interactive if you can get over into Facebook and jump in and join in on the interactive chat. We love to get involved with the chat. And again, you don't have to agree with this. We're not going to silence you, and we'll put your view out there, and it'll spark the conversation. Just like like they say on John and Eric's show, nobody's getting sued for their comments in our chat. We'll leave it at that. But yeah, so listen, what are the implications? So now, we're involved in another conflict. We're involved in a conflict with a country who has been one of the, if not the leaders in financing terrorists around, global terrorists around the world. And obviously, there's talk about sleeper cells here in the United States. We have homegrown, homegrown and inspired lone wolf, as you may call them, terrorists who go out and commit these heinous acts. So those are serious threats that law enforcement in the United States have to be prepared to, number one, thwart. And I'll get into Juju's comments in a second. But also respond to, because a lot of these individualized people that are self-radicalized and self-inspired jihadists, or whatever you want to call them, terrorists who want to support these causes, are very difficult to track. So it becomes a response issue. It becomes an awareness issue for the officers, and that's more of our forte about what we're going to talk about, where we think the NYPD is at, local law enforcement, and so forth. So on that note, Juju's talking about, I'm not sure exactly where this happened, but he's saying quick thinking by an observant officer helped get another illegal weapon off the street. After spotting a person trespassing on the subway tracks, officers pursued the individual and recovered a loaded firearm. Right. Now, this is how New York City manages to remain the safest big city in the country. All right. Tish is working. That's another discussion for another day. I do support Commissioner Tish in her efforts. Don't agree with a lot of the things that she does in some of the policies, but yes, this is exactly what we're talking about, because someone on the tracks, Rob, right? This guy's just on the tracks for whatever nefarious reason. He's got a loaded gun. But could he have also had some kind of improvised explosive device, an explosive device, a pressure cooker bomb, something that could have caused mass casualties or severe infrastructure damage?
Yeah, if you remember, I forget the specific date, but down in it was Times Square, right? There was a suicide bomber not long ago that I think he detonated by mistake, but anyway, blew himself up. So absolutely, I mean, when you talk about the amount of people that have come across the border illegally, and don't you think that there's sleeper cells there, then you're very naive because there's people that are probably in this country, and not only are there sleeper cells, but then there's lone wolf individuals like you had just spoken about, people that see things happen on the news and suddenly they become, a wannabe and start doing things, nefarious. So absolutely, I mean, at this point in the NYPD and I'm going to say across the country in law enforcement, everywhere you are, you could be in the smallest town now. I don't think you're safe anymore. You have to be on your point 100% because of the actions that we've taken with our military, because of the actions that have happened in the world. We are a prime target. Now, you'll hear people say, well, New York's a hard place to hit the target. Years ago, the Brooklyn Bridge, right? Kelly had put somebody on the bottom of the Brooklyn Bridge in an RMP, radio motor patrol car or police car, one on the opposite side. There was chatter that terrorists said the bridge is too hot to try to attack. That bridge, you talk about the Brooklyn Bridge, you talk about a lot of people that come and go across that would have been a prime target. If you detonated on either side of that bridge or both sides simultaneously, you would have caused mass hysteria and people wouldn't have nowhere to go. So that being said, yes, you have to remain vigilant. And right now, you have to be on your game. You cannot let your guard down because anything and everything should be considered a possible terrorist attack at this point. And you talk about the Chelsea bombing years ago, pressure cooker, you had mentioned that.
Yeah.
There were two pressure cookers,
True.
one that detonated and one that was set for, first responders. So we have to be 100% vigilant, and we have to think about that in the back of our head, right? What's the primary target and what's the secondary target? And you know who the secondary target is? First responders, police officers, firefighters, emergency medical technicians. So you have to be very, very careful because this could easily erupt into something catastrophic. And you need to, in my opinion, at this point, I don't care if it's a shots fired job. I don't care if it's a domestic job, because you could easily be, brought into an ambush, but you have to prepare for every job. And you know what you need to do? More importantly, you have to talk to your partner and you have to develop plans. And then I'm hoping that sergeants and platoon commanders are talking to their members and going over strategies, because that is where it's going to save lives.
Yeah. We'll get a little bit deeper into what we think that needs to be done in the right way to deploy and briefings that don't exist, unfortunately, that should exist. But here's a perfect example of what we're talking about, right? Austin, Texas. We have somebody wearing a Property of Allah shirt, and underneath it, he's wearing an Iranian flag shirt, right? And he goes in and he shoots up a club, and luckily, the Austin Police Department responded within minutes and was able to end that threat and take this self-radicalized U.S. citizen. Yeah, guys from Africa, from Senegal, Michael Allen is saying, but he's a United States citizen from what I understand and what I've read. But he wasn't a sleeper cell from the intelligence that's out there, and he was just self-radicalized. He's made posts and whatnot in the past. He wasn't on anybody's radar, and this is what we're talking about, where people aren't on the radar, and they go out and they do these mass casualty events. And and a quick aside on this we talk about, manpower, we talk about overtime, we talk about all these things with the NYPD all the time. It's all over the country. In Austin, Texas, their council was looking to cut all of their overtime, and the 3 officers that were involved in the shooting, all of them were on overtime. So had they cut the overtime like they were trying to do, these 3 officers would not have been available, would not have been out there. Now they were on overtime because their department is short. And like I said, I have family in Texas, so I've got my niece's husband left Texas Police Department to go into the private sector just because policing isn't what he wasn't viable for him anymore, and so he left. But this is what we're talking about. This is the threat that we're talking about that we have to be ready for.
Yeah, I just want to, 92 Charlie, I think he's really good comments tonight, as always. He mentioned that, the department has a tendency to say there's no credible threats, but actually there are threats, and they don't share amongst the rank and file. That was 100%, 100%. And it happens all the time. And it's sad that the intel doesn't get passed down. So, like
we'll
Morgan writes. Huh?
Yeah. No, go ahead. We're gonna talk about that a little bit more.
All right.
In a few minutes, but yeah. So just like you're saying, right? The NYPD boosts security amid the attack on Iran. So what does that mean? That we're on heightened alert. Again, what does that mean? Aren't we always on heightened alert? What's going on in this world that we're not on heightened alert, that we haven't been on heightened alert, that New York City has not been the #1 target for terrorism in the United States? And again, through intelligence and cooperation with federal law enforcement partners, we have been able to thwart several terrorist incidences. But when a big problem is this, right? We're launching attacks on Iran. We have threats. We're the #1 target. And listen, I understand it takes time to get your security clearance. Other mayors took longer to get their security clearance. But our mayor does not have national security clearance. Our police commissioner does. The mayor's chief of staff, because of prior appointments in presidential administrations, has the national security clearance. Obviously, Commissioner Weiner, I'm not sure I'm not pronouncing her name correctly, from counterterrorism has the clearance. And they get that information. But legally, if they are giving intelligence, classified intelligence, they're not allowed to share it with Mamdani. They can make inferences to things like maybe we should harden Times Square for the next 2 weeks. Maybe we should harden the transit system. But they cannot legally, if they are given a confidential national security briefing on a direct threat, they are not allowed to go and tell the mayor. What do you, you there?
Yeah, you wonder if the public still knows that, that they may have forgotten it. It doesn't take that long to get your security clearance. I got mine through the Department of Homeland Security. It can be expedited, right? And if they're not doing that, I don't know why they're not, but maybe there's issues. Maybe there's issues that they find in his background that he can't be trusted, and then that might be a reason as well. But they talk about that, and yeah, you're right. Should there be a credible threat, which the NYPD says there's never a credible threat. There should be credible threats. Why aren't we finding credible threats? Things happen. Why is that not information forwarded? Or maybe it is. Maybe it's held in the upper echelons of the department. But a credible threat, I've never heard of a credible threat. Like, I've never heard the NYPD say, we have a credible threat. Never. So,
Yeah,
I guess nothing's credible.
Neither have I. And one battle after another one. Never saw that name in the chat before, but I have a feeling that he is under a new name. Says that the CO emails to the command, stay alert, LOL. And he's not far from the truth. He's not far from the truth. They put out blast emails. They put out blast messages that you can put on your phone and you could send to people within a command, or, if you have other people working in your command, you can add that command code to the message and send out messages and send out alerts or whatever the case may be. But basically, like you said, you've never heard of a credible threat, and you had the national security clearance. I never did. I was a precinct commander, but I was never briefed. We've always had, when we do our, pre-meetings for large events and everything else, and everybody comes to the table, intel comes to the table, and they'll give you some information sometimes on the groups, backgrounds of the group that are running the detail, or running the event, or whatever the case may be, if they've been problematic in the past. I've never been told that there's been a threat, just like you said. So it's and then Mikey G, MD, the metal detector in Long Island. Why is the mayor trying to get rid of the rapid response units with long guns? We're going to get into the SRG in a minute. Rob's going to give us a breakdown on some of that, right? But it's just the fact that he doesn't have the security clearance it's concerning. It's very concerning. I'm concerned as a resident of New York City. I'm concerned that my mayor cannot be briefed by the federal government on any type of threats. And technically, his chief counsel, his police commissioner, his police commissioner's chief of counterterrorism, or not chief of counterterrorism, his commissioner, all have that. And technically can't share that information with the mayor to formulate a proper plan. It's scary. So, you see these protests, and that's another thing that we have to worry about. It's not just these lone, wolf or sleeper cells that we have to worry about. The protests begin. They began immediately, right? And here's what I talked about a little earlier with what the protests are about, and what blows my mind on why people decide, because Trump went and initiated a military strike, that they're now going to come out in force to protest that there's a military strike in Iran, and that Khomeini, however you want to pronounce his name, is now dead.
Deportation! For jobs and education! #1 terrorist! U.S. imperialist! Boots on the ground, no bombs in the air! Boots on the ground, no bombs in the air! U.S. out of everywhere! U.S. out of everywhere!
don't see a lot of Iranian people or Middle Eastern people in those protests. I see a lot of the same faces that we see in every other protest that we saw when Maduro was captured and taken into custody, when the Free Palestine movement, when George Floyd, the Summer of Love, Black Lives Matter. It's all the same people. The people that are directly affected, immediately directly affected, the people of Iran who call themselves Persians, right? What are they doing? All around the world, you see them dancing in the streets, celebrating, holding up American flags and saying, "Thank you, President Trump, for taking down the Ayatollah and this oppressive regime." So once again, same thing when Maduro was captured, right? We're out there protesting, and for what? These are not the people that are involved. They're just, I don't get it.
Yeah, it sounds like the similar paid protesters that that'll suddenly muster together very quickly. They must have a better roll call system or a recall system than the NYPD does, and they all get together and they resume patrol as they should. So they mobilize a lot quicker right now than the NYPD mobilizes.
Oh, yeah. Well, let's take a look, because hours after the strike, these organic protests that pop up, how does that wind up happening? Organic. They're coming out of a Soros-backed business with all of these signs, and there was somebody on the internet, but the video was just too long. I didn't have, the opportunity to cut that video, right? But again, when you look at these protesters, look at these signs, professionally made signs. They're all the same signs, right? All these Iranian people that are protesting. Oh, wait, they're not. It's just, I don't get it. But this is what the NYPD has to deal with. This is what we have to deal with.
Yeah, I mean, that doesn't look like they deal with it very well anymore anyway. So they kind of just let these people march wherever they want, all over the streets. So yeah, they got nice signs. They're well structured. They're better structured than the NYPD. They have a better response, and they are allowed to walk wherever they want. No permits, no problems. Take over the streets. So.
Yeah, it's just amazing, So when we talk about readiness and we talk about, that the NYPD is on high alert. So what are we actually talking about? Like we already discussed that the NYPD is not giving the executives, and even like yourself, an executive that had the federal clearance, any briefings. So what are they doing for the rank and file? How are they giving the rank and file any kind of information? We have the technology, we have the phones, right? To go out there and to get information out to these officers immediately. But what in reality is being done?
Yeah, I think one bottle after another one says nothing, and that's 100% right. They don't do anything. They don't send you anything. They don't tell you anything. They keep it close to their chests. Hey, they may be moving chess pieces around. They may be saying, hey, you know what? Let's send SRG to deploy to these locations, or we talk about the emergency service unit and the Hercules packages. They may be sending them to specific locations. But is the intel being filtered down? Do you know why you're at those locations? No, they don't tell anybody. I've never gotten briefed where I've been told, hey, this is, we're getting suspicious activity or chatter or anything else over here, and this is where we need you guys to be deployed. No, nothing. Okay, I've been in PC briefings where I would imagine that most everybody had the same type of clearance that I have. There's nothing spoken about that either. So whether maybe it's at the highest level and we don't know, but that doesn't help the men and women that are out on the streets. And okay, what would be the reason why they wouldn't want to tell you? Do they not trust you? Do they not trust the men and women of the NYPD? Are they afraid that we'll share it with somebody else, with our family? Like, hey, don't go to Times Square tonight to go to a play because we're getting information that something might happen in Times Square. Yeah, probably. I mean, I don't see anybody that in the NYPD and within the family and your family that you wouldn't tell them. Absolutely. Are you going to go on CNN or Fox or Newsmax? No, you're not going to broadcast it to everybody. So I don't know. I don't understand why they can't tell us, why they don't tell us. They pretty much keep you in the dark. And they just ask you and push you along until something happens. So, you wonder with all the things that have happened after 9/11 that no information has ever filtered down to any of the men and women that are actually on the boots on the ground, right? The ones that are first ones, they're going to run in when something happens. They don't tell anybody, they don't care.
No, it's amazing. It's like, it's the same thing that you see and you hear when people get deployed, right? For these, used to be the high alert posts, right? For counterterrorism after 9/11. Then, once they realized that they could do this, they started doing these all outs and these rapid deployments and these mobile field forces and everything else. And again, everybody shows up to Randall Zion, they get in a van, they get brought to a location, they get put out on a foot post. How much intelligence are they really being given as to why they're there? When I was the CEO of my precincts and I had people come into my command because I had increased crime problems, I had gang problems, whatever the case may be, I made up very concise one-page trifold in color, because I didn't pay for the ink, right? Not a black and white that's been photocopied 17,000 times. You can't read it. You can't make out the photos of the wanted people, and put as much information as I could put in there that cops are actually going to read, right? Not that, it's so much of a booklet that you're going to give a cop that the only thing that they're doing is writing down the coffee order, writing down the lunch order on the back of this, maybe taking some notes about something,
Hey, listen, man, you bring up a great point. You cracked me up when you were saying that. I can remember the photostatic copies and the picture. Every of those pictures looked the same. It was just like a black blur,
black outline.
I had no idea. Like this guy just commit all of these crimes? Because it looks, the similarity is amazing that they couldn't waste the ink to print out nice colored copies to give out to the police officers. And, you know, you knew everybody was coming to a particular location. Get a printer there and print something out nice, a package that means something. You know, they wasted more black ink than I think anybody by just putting a blob there.
It's ridiculous how when I was in the precinct, I had to fight as the precinct CEO to get a color printer in my office, right? I had to fight with downtown to get one and call in a favor sometimes to get a color printer in my office. Crime analysis, sure, they had color printers because they had to do their charts and their maps and all this other stuff, right? The FIO might have one. It's just ridiculous where the priorities are in the department, in the executive ranks, and in like all the Office of Management and Analysis and Planning and the budgets and everything else, where money is wasted so much in so many different places where, you know, giving somebody a color copy of a wanted poster makes the world of difference. To give out a succinct, very specific intelligence package or pamphlet as to why you're here tonight, and even for the patrol cops in your command to give them out. I used to have platoon specific pamphlets that I would have the platoon commanders give to their cops because crimes are happening, different crimes happen on different platoons. Some things, you know, cross over, but a lot of times 4 to 12s have this issue, day tours have this issue, midnights have that issue. So why should they all be getting one pamphlet where they got to try and pick and choose what they do? Take the time to properly deploy your people, right? You have to arm them with the intelligence to do their job, the intelligence and the tools. And one of the tools to properly do your job is intelligence, is rapid and timely intelligence, right? So what Marlon's talking about in his comments is that not everybody there are paid protesters. True. Not some people are there organically to protest and to demonstrate, you know, and to you know, to voice their opposition to the government, which is their God-given First Amendment right, right? They do it where they embed these people and they get them caught up in it, and they get them to muddy up everything. And he says here they do so by paying the agitators to turn the protest violent or to muddy up the message. 100%. You know? And then the public thinks that everybody are lunatics. That's true. That's true.
Yeah. I mean, perception, right? We talk about it. Excuse me. Had they given out decent intel, not good pictures. The perception is that the department cares about you and is concerned. Now, maybe with the phones now, you know, they put out, you know, lists of people that are wanted and stuff. So it's a little more in depth and you get a little bit more, you know, color photos, you get a little bit of intel. The problem with that is trying to, you know, recall that in an emergency situation, right? It's kind of hard, but they may be giving it out that way. So if they are, you know, it's a step in the right direction. But there's other things, you know, like we've said, there's information that needs to be given out, and we often wonder why it's not filtered down. Like why would they hold on to it? You know, what would be the reason why they would not want to give that out? I mean, there's obviously there's classified information, and then there's declassified information. There's, you know, bolas put out, you know, so I mean, there's things that information that needs to be put out. It's also imperative that as a police officer on the streets that you go through those things and look through them, because you could come across somebody on a routine traffic stop, which we'll say is never routine, and
Correct.
it now can be you know, a felonious car stop because of what the information. Remember, you have to remember that when you stop that person knows what they did. Not always does the officer know what you did. So you have to be cautious, and you always have to be on your game. So
And listen, it's funny. I was on the phone today for over an hour with a recruit in the academy. Yesterday was Gun and Shield Day, and He's a friend of someone in my family, and I was talking to him and just giving him some advice. And a lot of this stuff is exactly what you say. I used to go and talk to the graduating recruit classes at the recruit orientation at the borough level, even before I worked at the borough. When I was a precinct commander, the borough used to ask me to go and speak because I'm a gacuron, right? So, but I try to motivate them, but I'm honest and I'm real with them. And just like you're saying, you got to get this information out. You got to let them know. You got to have them understand. Like we always talk about it when it comes to, again, I'll equate the counterterrorism deployments to crime suppression deployments, because you're being put in a location for a specific person, a specific location for a specific purpose, right? To prevent a specific action from happening, whether it be crime or counterterrorism. You have to arm these officers with the knowledge of why they're there, give them a little bit of a background. Listen, it doesn't have to be a 2-hour briefing, but you have to let them know this is why they're there. And then you will have buy-in by the officers. It's not only just, and when they have buy-in, it also makes them safer because they will be more alert. They will be more attuned to what's going on because now they actually have something to look for. They're not just a stick in the mud. They're not just, as someone said before, a mushroom that the NYPD plants out there. Okay? So Jose Vega, good friend of the show, former disorder control specialist, he's still disorder, or I think they call him now public order specialists, right? He goes around the country and he teaches, he talks about, public order. I've always stated when I now teach around the country that one of our biggest failures is lack of proper communication, 100%. And it's communication even amongst the upper echelon. You talk about, we talked about already the feds communicating with certain individuals that have the clearance, and how that trickles down and how it should trickle down. Like you said, some things are confidential, some things are can't be said. But yeah, you can't put these people in harm's way, and that's exactly what we're doing. We're putting these cops in harm's way. Every day when you walk out the street, out the door, you're in harm's way. But you're putting them in even more harm's way by putting them at these sensitive locations, because we're on heightened alert, because there's a military action in the Middle East with a hostile adversary who does not have a problem with targeting civilian populations, right? So my phone was bugging out on the side, sorry. But, we have to communicate. We have to let people know why you're there. And again, the job wants a body in uniform. That's it. I hate that. I hate that's what people are saying, because that's what they feel. And if that's what you feel, then that's how you're going to work. 92 Charlie, even when the jock is activated, you have all these department units and outside units not sharing info. Only when, I don't know what's going on with my phone, I'm sorry. Only when, if something is asked, will a representative from a certain agency share the info. And for what those non-NYPD people, the jock is the Joint Operations Center. When there's a big event happening, there's representatives. You know what I think's going on? I think my phone connected to my TV downstairs, and my kids keep changing what's going on and what I'm seeing on my phone. All right. So I think I hooked up to the TV by accident. So yeah. So you have people that are assigned from all different units, from every borough. And the reason is supposedly so that that person has a direct link and a direct line of communication back to their unit heads or their borough commanders and their local commanders. But like you said, how much of that information is actually really shared? It's smoke and mirrors, as 92 Charlie says, unfortunately, and that is a true statement. So what are the deployments, and what do the deployments look like? And I know I'm a little behind in the comments, but when people go out, this is really what we see, right? A cop standing at a foot post, standing in front of a sensitive location, right? The only reason he's looking is because somebody's taking a picture. Stand there with his hands in his pockets. And again, I am not trying to knock this officer, whoever this officer is, right? 770 Eastern Parkway, one of the biggest Jewish sensitive locations in Brooklyn, Eastern Parkway. 2 cops sitting in an RMP. Not even one in, one out. Situational awareness. Where is it? Where is it? This is 770 Eastern Parkway is an obvious target. They're there. Temple Emmanuel. You got a cop standing in front, hands in his pocket, a couple of horses, what do you call them? 10-foot cops? 10-foot cops? We don't do crowd control anymore, but we'll bring them out there for high visibility and have the horses walk on the streets. But the cops, they're not armed with the proper knowledge. And this is an AI generated photo that I did because it scares me to see this. And it used to bother me, and it was a pet peeve of mine. And anybody, especially in PSA 7 in my last few years, when I was the borough commander for Housing Bronx, Queens, I drive to work and I come over the bridge and I'm going down and I pass the THV that's in front of the development and I don't see cops. Where are they? They're both sitting inside the THV. When meanwhile, 2.5 miles away, Minnesota's Familia was shot and killed inside of a THV. Only a few years prior. So if it's not on your mind for situational awareness with a real tragedy that happened not far from where you're sitting, I don't know what it takes to get through to people, because I used to stop and scratch that log every day, especially you know I'm coming. And they're there. They're just there. And if you're not aware, you never know what's sneaking up behind you. And again, this is an AI generated photo. So this isn't something real that was out there, but it's just a depiction of you're not paying attention. You don't have situational awareness. You don't know what's going on around you. You never know who's going to sneak up behind you or who's going to attack the location that you're there to actually protect.
Yeah, no, you need full situational awareness at all times. So you always have to be suspicious. When you're sitting there or on a foot post, you're in a car, whatever. I mean, you talk about, Lou and Ramos, God rest their souls. 2 guys sitting in a car, and I'm not saying they did anything wrong. They weren't even on a post. I think they were just sitting there, parked at that particular location. So, but you always have to be suspicious when you're on patrol. You always have to be watching your sixth, as Stephen S. would always say, right? But yeah, you always have to be careful. You always have to watch your back. You have to watch your partner's back. So, we can attribute that some to training, like it was mentioned before, right? Just a warm body, but I think that has to be more dedication to the training, more dedication to tactics, and more refreshers. This is the point where, hey, all right, every other day, okay, it's fine. The cops are sitting there, whatever. And this guy didn't get out. The 2 cops are sitting there in the car at a fixer. But right now, when things, the shit's hitting the fan across the country, across the world, you need to be vigilant. And we're not taught that, So yeah. We're on high alert, like you said earlier. Aren't we on high alert every day? When you go on patrol, you should be on high alert no matter what.
Every day.
I don't know. And I never heard the terminology, we're on medium alert, we're on low alert. I've never heard that. So
Right.
every day is high alert. You know,
And
just
that-
tell me that there's, give me intel. I mean, this is this, you know, suspected threats. This is this and that. This is where you should be vigilant. Okay. You know, just don't leave it out there in the open that we're on high alert. Great. That's terrific. So that's great.
That's one of the things I told this kid, this recruit that's going to be out in the street next week, right? Not going to a highest of crime commands, but I said, don't let that give you a false sense of security because it could happen anywhere. I wasn't at the 111 at the time, but twice the 111, right? Station house security was one person walked in with a weapon and one person took out a gun and pointed it at the officer right in front of the 111 precinct, one of the slowest commands in the city, right? So, you know, one battle after another one, I'll call him a friend of the podcast, right? Is saying that, you know, Sergeant can't even tell him what the conditions are in his command, but tells him he needs to address them. It's exactly what we're talking about. You have to give direction. And what I've always said, and this particular viewer, you know, has an issue with you know, enforcement activity. And what I always used to tell people is that you have to inform people why they're doing what they're doing and what the outcome is going, you know, what the projected, what you want the outcome to be. And if it has to do with enforcement, the specific enforcement that you should be doing to correct a certain condition to improve the quality of life, to improve the safety of motorists, whatever the case may be, not just bullshit numbers for numbers, not just bullshit foot posts so that you're a mushroom standing in front of a synagogue for the sake of saying that we are giving them special attention, but give them the information and tell them why they're there, what they're there to do. And then, like I said, they will have buy-in. They will understand it. They're a lot more apt to go out and do their job. Well, they can do their job more properly when they're properly informed. But when they understand, and they're not just told, do this. It's like a parent, do this because I told you to do so. Sometimes you need to do that. In an emergent situation, you need to be the supervisor, you need to be the boss and say, do this, do it now, no questions asked, just do it. But that is the exception and not the rule. The rule should be to explain why people are doing things so they understand why they're doing it, they can be more effective in doing it, and they can be safer in doing it.
Yeah, and I'll take it a step further. You're an officer out there on the streets, your boots on the ground. You know what? You really, in your best interest, you know, look up things yourself and look up tactics, look up things that you can learn from. Don't depend on these empty suits, you know, sergeants, lieutenants, captains, chiefs, or whatever. Don't depend on them to give you the information. You know, learn it on your own. Like I'll say again, last night, what Morgan Wright should do is he should be doing presentations down at 1PP to the department. He should be on a training video. I learned more last night on the 10-4 Tavern podcast than I was ever taught in the NYPD. I mean, he's unbelievably smart. He's witty. He has a lot of props, you know, including a cat, which we've never seen before.
First cat on the finest unfiltered.
He did a couple firsts, you know. So, but I mean, seriously, as a police officer out there, don't depend on supervisors because they're not out there. And you know, like I've said in the past, just passing a test doesn't make you a good supervisor. It doesn't make you a leader. All right. All it does is put stripes on your arms, or you know, bars on your collar brass, or stars on your collar brass. It doesn't make you a leader. All right. So anybody can be a leader. Cops can be leaders. Cops can tell sergeants in a diplomatic way what to do, and a lot of them need it. Believe me. So you know, you need to go out, get your information. learn your tactics. If you have to do it on your own, unfortunately, yeah, I mean, there's courses, there's things you can do, but the department's not teaching you, right? What happened to the 5 days of training we were all getting? That's probably still in OMAP right now, the Office of Management and Planning, and it's being, driven around. How can we, logistically bring in, 20-some thousand police officers and train them within a year for 5 days, which isn't going to happen. But it's important that it's almost a survival. It's your own survival. You talk, Eric Dimmel often say, train hard. He knows jujitsu and stuff. That's what you need to do. You need to step up your game a little bit because the department isn't going to step it up for you. So.
Yeah, Marlon, there are supervisors in intel and counterterrorism who couldn't tell you what terrorism threats, what I think it says what meant to say what terrorism threats are out there. Yeah, it's, it is a problem job wide. People are worried about checking boxes. And I used to hate that. And I've talked about this in the past, right? Yeah, everybody wants to check boxes. Just do what you're doing. When I was the CEO of Queens North Task Force, before it was the Strategic Response Group, right? I stopped the level 1 mobilizations to bank robberies. They were a waste of resources, right? People were just checking a box. Why are we coming here? Because you're supposed to call level 1 mobilization because it's a bank robbery. By the time we mobilize and get there, that guy's home watching Barney, or he's out at the next bank. What I need to know from the first responding officers is intelligence, right? Did they actually get any money? Because if they didn't get money, a lot of times the bank robbers are going to go to another bank. So we should deploy to surrounding banks and be in close proximity of other banks, because the likelihood of somebody trying to hit another bank because they were unsuccessful at getting money at the first one is pretty high. But if somebody went and robbed the bank, they gave them money, they're in the wind, they're gone before the first responding cops get there, let alone calling a mobilization. So we actually stopped that, right? It's the same thing. We talk about it, right? ESU for evidence searches. It's a checkbox. I learned this when an ESU, and we've talked about it in the past, ESU cops have thrown me off the floor of jobs. I'm in the way. There's no reason for me to really be there. But it's the same thing. I, one time, called the issue 2 hours later because nobody called them for an evidence search. And the ESU cop, who I didn't really know, so he was a little bit flippant, but he goes, "Hey, boss, are my eyes any better than yours or his or his?" I'll never forget that. Why do I need to call ESU for an evidence search? If I need to do a compactor search, or if I need to do some type of search, maybe of the sewer or something where I have an idea that something might have been thrown down, or where their expertise is needed, then I'm gonna call them. But other than that, I've called off ESU. I've called up. You got a flashlight, officer? There's 5 of you standing here in a circle jerk. Turn on your flashlights and you go walk with your thing, look for shell casings. What do we need ESU for? They're coming out with those blue flashlights. Your 60,000 candle watt little surefire flashlight's going to work a lot better than ESU's little blue click one that they have in the RMPs, right? It's a waste of resources. So I agree with you about the checking of the boxes. I know I went a little off target, but
No, I mean that evidence search, I think, stems out of CompStat. One time, a person was asked, "Did you call emergency service to do an evidence search?" And the guy at the podium is humming, and that transitions to everybody that was at that meeting tells everybody else, "You better call ESU for evidence search." Now, I'll tell you a little secret. Monsignor Romano blesses every ESU's flashlight.
Do they really?
So, no.
Oh. Where'd that come from?
I think it would make it a little special if he did, but yeah, no, the flashlights are no better than anybody else's. And you're right, you get enough cops standing there, do a line search, everybody with their flashlight, and start walking down, and do the evidence search yourself. There's absolutely unequivocally no reason, but maybe since I said that, maybe Monsignor Romano will now go and bless every emergency service unit officer's flashlight just for the fact. So
there you go. So Vince, Morgan Wright puts Leyson to shame. No comparison whatsoever. I can't argue with your comment, and I don't claim to. And I believe in the beginning I said that we aren't geopolitical, experts, and we're not more well versed than anybody else watching TV and looking some things up online. And even more so, preparing for the show, I learned some things that I hadn't known even before that, right? And I've always said, a good leader, right? If I'm the smartest person in the room, time to get out of the room, right? I surround myself with people that are smarter than me that can help me, right? And we have been clear that Morgan Wright is the expert. Go back and watch Tuesday's 10-4 Tavern with Morgan Wright. So,
and you know what? I'll add this: if I was to ever become the police commissioner of the city of New York, although I've looked at my phone and Mamdani has not even texted me at all, but if he ever did, I would ask, Morgan Wright to be the chief of intel, and then I would ask Marlon Beckel to be my second whip there. But those two guys, they both spot on. Last night, Morgan Wright, that intel, the information that I learned, oh my God, I wish I had learned that way back when I was on the job, So
I said it on the show because, like I said, I was a guest on the show. I was brought in to the tavern. That's one of the things that they do. People just pop in like a tavern. You never.
How come they didn't ask you what you were drinking? You didn't. You should have said what you were drinking.
Well, I took a sip of my Poland spring water. I'm not.
All right. You looked a little drunk. I might add, you looked a little intoxicated.
I was tired.
I'm just saying. Yeah, right. Okay, that's every time somebody stops for a DWI, that's what they say. I'm a little tired.
And John was complaining about my Mets hat. Tell that to my daughter who works there. Yeah. ESU has better flashlights. No, they don't. And you're taking them. You also got to take into consideration the resources that you use. You're taking away from being used someplace else that may be needed more. So if these ESU guys got to come across town for a bullshit evidence search just so you can check the box and put that ESU detective Ron Leyson was 84 at the scene, and now some cop is calling for help someplace else that they may have been on patrol, or some other high value job, you got to think of it that way.
And Marlon said he'll take the deputy commissioner of social media clout job.
There you go.
Whatever you want, Marlon, you're in, no matter what.
And Marlon saying he was right, but the cop must have had a ton of time on to say that to a boss. Now, like we said, we've talked about it. ESU is a different animal, so to speak. It's a different breed because they do something different, and they're all alpha. They're all type A personalities. They're used to independent thought and all being leaders and taking control and taking command. I wasn't insulted.
But don't forget, well, what was it on the midnight?
4 to 12 or midnight, because we did need flash.
All right. Here's the other thing. Don't forget. Well, there's a lot of senior guys on the late tour, so you want to fuck with them, period. But anyway, the second thing is think about what you're taking them away from. Right, you don't know. There could be a bigger job going. There could be a barricade EDP, and you brought them on some, BS evidence search. I mean, there's other things then for them to be doing out there. So
I don't even know what you're talking about, Vince.
I think there's still a petition to get rid of the executive perspective and just put a boss's perspective. I haven't seen that signature.
Vince is the only person that doesn't understand the difference between a boss and an executive, so that's okay. And Jose says he's going to put in the deputy commissioner of public order for you.
There you
go. It is, and Choo Johnny, ESU, always there for the cops, 100%. So don't take them away. Don't take them away from their primary mission of being where they need to be, because they're deployed to the locations just like anybody else. They're given patrol responsibilities of where they're supposed to be patrolling, and it comes from where they're utilized, and needed the most. You know, they love to hang out in the 111, right? Eat well, don't be bothered by anything, right? But how often are they really needed in the 111? So they're not patrolling in the 111. They're going to be in other commands that they're used and utilized for more. So if I pull them to the ass end of Douglaston Manor, right, where we're spitting on Nassau County line for a BS evidence search. Come on, I'm taking them away from someone that might really need them. And it could be a life or death situation. But, you know, we're kind of getting a little off topic, but, you know, it's really, we're talking about awareness, right? We're talking about what cops need to do. We're talking about why cops need to be vigilant every day, not just when we're on high alert. But listen, we are at a heightened state right now, and for good reason. For good reason. So if you're getting these posts, please be vigilant. Try to get some information. When you go and you get these, you know, special attention posts, whether it be a fixer or special attention where you have to visit them a couple of times a tour, 3 times a tour, spend 15 minutes there, spend 20 minutes there, whatever your off patrol time is for the NCOs, if you have to go and be at these locations. Don't just go there and be those cops that sit outside with your lights on to bring attention to the place, right? And so that they can track you in your AVL, your automatic vehicle locator, because it does say whether your lights are turned on, whether your engine is turned on, right? Because that's another comps, that bullshit trick, right? Oh, you went there, but did you even get out of the car? The engine was running the whole time. Did you even get out of the car? You know, when you did a directed patrol at this location, you know? So you have to be alert. You have to remain vigilant. If you have a fixed post, it should be no less than 1 in and 1 out of the car. You can't both be sitting in the car with your head buried in your phones, texting. Like, again, I have Peppa Pig on my phone right now. You know.
You have the capability to text Peppa Pig? Well, that's amazing.
No, my phone is my kids linked my phone to the TV downstairs. But anyway, you know, 1 in, 1 out. Be alert, be vigilant, right? If you go to these locations, even if you aren't given any kind of intel package or intelligence as to why you're there for a reason. That location was chosen because it's possibly been a threat, or it's something that a threat could possibly come to, right? What should you really be doing? You should go in and introduce yourself to somebody there, find out if they have security, right? Get a layout. Do a little walkthrough if they let you, whether it's a religious institution or not, right? Go out there. Know if there's other exits or entrances, egress points, things like that. You're arming yourself with knowledge you may need in the event of an emergency, right? Ask the people there. They're there every day. They know if there's been any suspicious activity. Has anybody suspicious been hanging around lately, right? Because one of the things that Morgan Wright was talking about on the 10-4 Tavern, are people are creatures of habit, right? And you have to look for these, you know, identified patterns of behavior. And what are they going to do? People are going to go and they're going to case out a location, right? They're going to go do, you know, they're going to go and they're going to do dry runs. They're going to case out locations. They're going to do all these things. So go in, ask if anybody has seen any suspicious people lately, any suspicious activity that's going on, or anything like that. You know, if it's in your command, talk to your FIOs. You should have a relationship with your field intelligence office, you know, because they do get more briefings and more intelligence than the average police officers, right? Oh, there.
Here's one.
Marlon said the same. Marlon there you go. Marlon, a former field intelligence officer, right, and working for the intelligence division, says the same thing. They can always go to the FIO guys, the field intelligence officer guys, and ask if they got anything from intel about a location. Spot on, Marlon. That was to my point. It's just, you never know. Marlon says a lot of times intel sends out bulletins that get lost on the way down to patrol. I find that not enough FIOs make briefings of patrol a regular thing. Exactly. That's part of your job is not to just have weekends off and get a shield, is to help, what do you
No, I mean, that's what I talked.
Yeah,
That's what I talked about earlier. You have to solicit the information. You can't just wait for these, empty suits to give it to you. You got to go and get it because it's there and people want to share it. But sometimes there's people that, they don't have the intelligence to even go. Like the sergeant and lieutenant, they should have the intelligence to go to the FIO and ask them if they got anything for their platoon. And the CO, XO should be telling them, hey, this is what we got, So I just want to address a comment though. NYC 26, he said no embroidery in PC Lukach's administration. That's 100% for sure. That's ridiculous. And I think also they couple like Marlon and NYC 26. Shout out to Jerry Flood, unbelievable sergeant, great guy, ran the A team. The A team, they could be counted on for anything. Here's the little caveat that some people don't know. The A team also rotated in the guys from the trucks. So it wasn't just, it was a core group of guys, Jerry Flood running it. And there were previous sergeants, that did a great job too. So that, Jerry stood on the shoulders of some great guys that developed that. And then, guys would rotate in and it would almost be like a refresher for them as they went into it, a lot more high speed, more dynamic entries and things like that. So yeah, absolutely. The A team, 100%, but I'm going to tell you from my own experience, there's a lot of A team guys out there. And I would say most of the ESU guys are on the A team, but they're not assigned to the A team. So if you catch my drift, so.
Yeah, no, 100%. So Rob, why don't we talk, we've had the conversation pretty much about patrol and the patrol cops, the cops in the precincts that are getting assigned to these fixer locations or these sensitive locations or these, make special attention or visits to these locations. But, the job does, questions have come up about the strategic response group and where are they when it comes to these protests, but also when it comes to these deployments, because they have heavy weapons, long gun training. You've talked about that in the past. They are a supplement to both counterterrorism and emergency services unit, the critical response command from the Counterterrorism Bureau. And then within ESU itself, they have what we call, and what you've talked about in the past also, is Hercules teams, which are heavy weapons teams that are deployed to these high value targets, sensitive locations. So you want to give a little breakdown of the difference so our audience can understand. And when they see these groups that are out there, like I don't have pictures of all of them, but like here's a picture of a counterterrorism deployment, the critical response command deployment. They look like emergency services to the naked eye, but they're not. They're heavy weapons trained, but they're from the Counterterrorism Bureau.
Right. So I know the Counterterrorism Bureau used to do what called striker teams, similar to Hercules, but I think they used to call it striker teams. And they would deploy more often than not to soft targets, right? So what do I mean by a soft target? It could be, a store. It could be the Apple store. It could be a place where a large amount of people gather. It could be, San Gennaro Festival, different types of areas where people kind of, come together. Now, the ESU Hercules teams, that was put together with, a K-9 officer, a 1 in 4, a sergeant and 4 officers, and it was usually like a highway lead and an intel car. So there would be an officer from intel assigned to those, and they would go to different locations. And what they would do is the day before, we'd get a list of everybody, every location that they were going to go to. And then we would forward it to the Hercules team supervisor in the morning, and then they would go to those particular locations. The oddity of it is that there was never any information given with it as to why we were going to these specific locations. I mean, there was assumptions because there was a gathering, because it was a church, or because it was a synagogue, or, it could be anything, but there was no attached information. Now, I don't know if necessarily the intel officer could have immediately given us the information and said, this is the reason why we're here, but that usually didn't transpire. The intel officer once in a while would come out. Usually it'd stay in the car or whatever. And sometimes there was even changes, right? So there was a list of all these 10 locations that they were going to get to. And then all of a sudden, intel would call our main desk called the wheel, right? Similar to a borough wheel. And they would say, change this location to this. And then they would go to the particular different location. Again, with really no intel as to why they would specifically do it. So it was kind of weird that they wouldn't even let us know why we're there, right? Other than that, we're there to deploy as a Hercules team where everybody would get out with the heavy weapons. So, clearly a problem with communication, clearly a problem with not giving those officers knew their job. They're deploying with heavy weapons, but they didn't know what the specific reason for that deployment at that particular location was. Other than that, is it a soft target? Is it a hard target? Is there some venue going on? I mean, we've gone as far as to deploy to where the police commissioner was having dinner that night, right. So I mean, was it a show? It could have been a show. Yeah, maybe. Now, SRG, on the other hand, when you talk about disbanding the strategic response group, to me, that's the worst thing this department can do. Because, and I've spoken to this about the past, they are a response unit, okay? They are a force multiplier, not only for patrol, but for the emergency service unit, okay? And if you take away those officers, you take away those heavy guns, and I think somebody in the chat, I don't know if it was Marlon earlier, but somebody had mentioned you take that away. I think you need to now give heavy weapons to officers on patrol. I think Marlon's a big advocate of that, because here's the thing. You don't have any heavy weapons, okay? Yeah, you have emergency service unit, but I'm not going to give the specific number of officers that are assigned to emergency service unit on any given platoon, but that's the reason why SRG was so important, because of the force multiplier. Now, there was talk about CRC. John, Eric, and Marlon had spoken about it, how they slowly are disbanding that, and they're losing people. So, I mean, when you start talking about taking these heavy weapon teams away, you're talking about losing the battle against somebody, because I'm sorry, I don't see that many, terrorists walking up with handguns and everything else. If they're coming at us, and these sleeper cells or these lone wolves, they're coming at us with heavy weapons. Why? Because at this point, we won't be able to handle it, right? So, I mean, it's sad that the information does not get out. So, and one last comment. Hunter had mentioned it earlier. I agree. Get rid of like we talked about the embroidery. Stop with the bullshit uniforms. Let's get back to basics. Okay. Let's get back to it. All members in uniform make the same things. If you have tattoos, put long sleeve. There was an ad the other day. I think, I don't know if John put it up on Instagram or whatever, but their chief, a pretty serious and good chief, put out an ad for anybody that wants to come. I think they're actually looking for a lieutenant. And I think it was it might have been South Carolina or North Carolina, but it was a good guy. But he had a sleeve of tattoos on both arms. And a lot of people in the comments like, how do you take this guy serious with all these tattoos? So, yeah, I mean, I think you just got to look professional, and professionalism, looking professional, you kind of act professional, and it's gonna lead that way. So that's my my rant.
No, listen, it just goes to show you, here you are, the number 2 guy in Special Operations Division, which the Strategic Response Group and Emergency Services both fell under. So you have 2 of these 3 heavy weapons units that the job has. They only have 3, right? They have the Counterterrorism Bureau, the Strategic Response Group, and Emergency Services. And you were in charge. You oversaw 2 of them. And they're out there on these deployments, and they don't have intelligence. They're just told, hey, go here, go there, go here, go there. And like you said, you can make an inference as to why I'm here. I'm either inside of a transportation hub, or I'm near a transportation hub, or a sporting event for a high profile sporting event, or a concert, or a dinner where some high profile people might be, like you said, but that's the reality of it. And that's the truth to the matter. And it's really a sad state of events. And it's something that needs to absolutely change. The dissemination of information is priceless. It's, and training for what to do when you are faced with a situation. How should you respond? How should you act? So today, Viral News NYC, who is an independent reporter who goes out, he goes under the Viral News NYC as well as Leroy Press, goes out and he reports on immigration crimes in progress. He's chased the radio. It's a little more difficult now because of the encryptions, so you can't listen to the scanner and everything else. But he'd videotape it, and he got a big social media print. He put out a video today. And and it scared me. John McCarry did a post. Go to John McCarry's X account, and he put out a post on his views on this video and the lack of training, and as well as the genesis of why officers are acting a certain way is not the officer's fault. And we keep saying that. It's the fact that they're not trained properly, that they're being indoctrinated, that the life that these officers are living is not the life that we lived when we were on the job, that they don't have the support of the upper echelon a lot of the times. They don't have the support of the local politicians a lot of the times. The laws have been enacted since 2018, 2019, have not been pro-law enforcement. They've been pro-criminal. They've been pro-perpetrator. They've been pro-incarcerated individuals, where it's not protecting the public and the law enforcement officers as much as it's protecting the accused, I'll even say, and taking away qualified immunity. There's still so many different, conversations that could be had here. Taking away the qualified immunity, the 50A, the repeal of 50A, the diaphragm law that takes away tactical advantages of officers to take people into custody safely and control their body by controlling their torso. Just so many things. The Civilian Complaint Review Board and how weaponized they've become, and how they have openly said at city council hearings that they take into consideration more of the thought process and the feelings behind the civilian than the totality of the circumstances that the officers may be working with and their experiences that they've had in the past and everything else. And they argue that, oh, we're going to find them guilty, but we can't charge them. We're going to find them guilty of, certain allegations made by the civilian, but we cannot charge them administratively in the police department, since they have the right to now bring forth the charges and actually be the quote unquote prosecutor of these charges, because the officers technically didn't do anything wrong against the violated the law or department policy, but still, we still feel that they were guilty. So they're staining these officers' careers. They're staining their records with these substantiated cases that can't be removed, won't be removed, even after retirement and or death of the officer. Those things are still out there on 50A, right? And also, if you're found not guilty of the charges, you're still found substantiated by CCRB. And when people look at it, that's all they see. So these are the things that cops are up against and what makes them hesitant sometimes. And he who hesitates could ultimately die. It's a very bold statement, but in policing, there's no time for hesitation. You must act. You must act on your training and on your instinct. And I'm going to show this video, and then we'll discuss it. And I'm going to show the video, then I'm going to show two stills that I clipped from the video. Did I delete it for myself?
The fuck is this? I don't know if it's a gun or not a gun. I don't know what the fuck it is. Pull your guns out on them, bro. Pull your guns out on them.
My heart stops watching that video. And for those who missed it, this is an individual dressed all in black with a black mask and a black hoodie, walking with what looks like an assault style rifle. And that's a still, and I'll zoom in on the still. It looks like his hand is on the trigger, and he's got a green flag or a green cloth tied to what would be the barrel of the gun, possibly covering up the orange tip if it's a toy gun, because it appears to have turned out to be a toy gun. But these officers, and again, not to Monday morning quarterbacking, to help to educate and hope that we could bring some light to things that you really need to be mindful of when you're out on patrol. This is Times Square, people. We talked about it. Rob said it. You said it earlier, right? New York is one of the top targets in the world. Times Square is the center of the world. It's the center of New York. And we've had terrorist attacks in Times Square in the past. Now you have this individual, days after the incident in Austin, Texas, walking, and you have a civilian reporter saying, yo, bro, take your gun out on this guys. Take your gun out on these guys. They didn't know that that was a toy until they walked up, gingerly stopped this individual, and somehow identified that as a gun, and then just allowed him to continue on his way in the middle of Times Square.
So I'll talk about three things relative to this. I mean, yeah, we don't like the Monday quarterback. We like to demonstrate what should have been done. This was, to me, the only way I can say this was a terrible, terrible job by these officers. And I'll tell you why. Okay, so less than a year ago, on July 28th, 2025, an individual walked into 345 Park Avenue with a long gun in Midtown Manhattan midday. And poor Officer Islam, a 36-year-old male, was shot. Now, this has similarities to that totally, okay? And these officers should have taken a lot more tactics and a lot more aggression to stop this individual, okay? And after they stopped him and determined, first of all, the stop was terrible, and somebody definitely should have had the gun out. I don't care if it was the second partner had his gun out, but somebody should have been prepared. Then, after the stop, where's the stop, question, and frisk? And why? Not because we have to, not because some bullshit procedure, but because you know what? This individual could have just committed a robbery down the block. Okay, he could have went into a store. He could have went into civilians, pointed that weapon at them, and give me all your money. And now he's walking up the block. But no, you didn't ask for any information. You didn't ask for any identification. And you know what? I even said at this point, I would have confiscated that gun because I don't know, administratively, I think there's a charge. You're not supposed to be carrying that gun. Somebody mentioned discon, causing public alarm. I would even say menacing. You're carrying a rifle down the road in the middle of Times Square. To me, that's menacing. You're portraying fear and threat to somebody else.
I don't remember exactly what it is, Rob. But on that point also is a C summons for having imitation.
Right. And then finally, I'll say, terrorist, abso-freaking-lutely. Is this a dry run? Could be. I don't know. How fast are the cops going to respond? What are they going to do? And how about on top of this? Is this a diversion? All right. Hey, let me walk with this bullshit pellet gun and get stopped while somebody else attacks over there, because now we know that I'm going to draw them all in. This was, in fact, one of the worst jobs I've seen. Those officers don't need discipline, but they need retraining. 100%. If something like that had happened, those two officers should be pulled off patrol and spend a week down at the police academy tactics training. Or you know what? I'll give them something better. Send them down to Floyd Bennett Field and let some of the ESU guys give them some tactical training, because that, to me, was atrocious. So listen, I hate to blast the cops. I know they're out there doing a job, but if you're going to do it so that you protect yourselves. Those two guys are lucky they went home that night, because God forbid that had been a real gun. And on top of that, I'll throw a fourth thing in there. And we always teach that. We always say it. One gun equals two guns. How do you know that when they grabbed that gun, that guy didn't pull out another gun from his pocket, like a real gun? Okay? So I'm sorry. That was horrific. Horrific in my eyes. Hey, and you know what? You guys, the two officers, you guys need retraining. If the job doesn't give it to you, get it on your own, because you definitely need it. I'm sorry. And the reason I say that so adamantly is because I don't want to see guys and gals out there get hurt, and that they could have easily gotten hurt. So,
without a doubt, I agree with you 100%. And Marlon's saying, let the squad intel debrief them.
Yeah,
I can almost guarantee you that leads had, to later check cameras and go find this guy to make sure he wasn't some dry run. Just like you said, just like we talked about earlier, the patterns of behavior, right? Today he's walking through and it's a rubber gun or it's a plastic gun or whatever the case may be, and he wants to see what the response to the officers are. He just found out that a couple of cops are going to kind of meander on up to him and say, hey, excuse me, can I see what you have in your hand? Because that's what it appeared to be.
That's what it was.
I don't know how much time they have on the job. I don't know where they're assigned. If they're assigned to Times Square. If you're assigned to the Times Square unit, right, you can't be complacent either, because you're there every day. 100% agree with you. This was just really, again, not we don't have the identity of the cops. You don't even really see their faces. But listen, that was bad. That was bad.
Yeah.
That was dangerous. That was tactically unsound. And you let him continue on, where I would love to know if there were any 911 calls for a man with gun that came over, and then what, they 90 yellow it? Oh, we stopped him already. It's only a toy.
Yeah. I mean, look at Stephen Weiss brings it up. I mean, that's New York City Administrative Code 10-13 subdivisions G-1. It's illegal to possess or sell imitation pistols that substantially duplicate or can be reasonably perceived as a real firearm. So, I mean, they were absolutely 100% justifiable taking that person into custody. And like Marlon said, I would have taken him in just for the fact that, I don't know, man, I would even charge him with menacing or something else. I mean, you can't be walking down the street with a rifle. I'm sorry.
And then,
so
Steve,
at least get the information. Where's the guy's information that he's nothing?
It's in stage. Steve's a prior guest. We did an interview with Steve on the show. So Steve, thank you, retired lieutenant from the NYPD, and he's right here.
Steve.
They allowed the perp to control the situation. They did not take control. When an officer fails to take control, things can go very bad. Again, conversation I had today, over an hour with this recruit. That's one of the things I told them. When you're on the scene, you're in control. You have to maintain control and understand that that is your scene. You don't have the right to trample on people's rights, but you do have to remain in control and control the scene, which means that, hey, you are, as a police officer, allowed to take away certain liberties for certain time frames to conduct proper investigations. And that, for damn sure, was one of those times that anybody could justify. Forget about that Leroy Press was there and he was taking a video. There's a zillion cameras in Times Square. Your body-worn camera, I don't know if their body-worn camera was activated or not, right? But you can absolutely justify the use of taking out your firearm, the use of forcibly stopping that person, taking him to the ground, handcuffing him for an further investigation, even if you release him at the scene with a stop and frisk report. The fact that he's carrying that, no matter what, deserved a much more aggressive, proactive approach, right? What would Eric call it? Intrusive police work. You needed to be intrusive on that scene. You needed to stop that person, be more aggressive. And this is exactly what I said. You just read it out. The C summons, right? Thanks for your quick copy and paste, Steve. We appreciate it. You're good on the computer. Right? But it's, Rob Murphy says it, they're scared to take control. And that's what we talked about, right? That's what we talked about. They're being indoctrinated, right? But
they're they're so scared. They're not even protecting themselves.
No.
You don't run up on something like that. That's a gun run. Okay. That's hey, let me see your hands with my gun pointed at you and put up your hands in the air. That's it. So, I mean, it's terrible,
Housing for life. You're an old school guy. You're an old timer. If it was midnights in the hood, the perp would hit the ground. It does right then and there. And I don't know what time it was. He works late at night. It doesn't matter if that was the day, the middle of the day, the middle of the night. He should have been taken down to the ground, handcuffed, searched, identified. I agree with Steve. C summons, right? Because even if that C summons gets thrown out, it's documenting the behavior and the activity, and it's an investigative tool that can be looked into, like Marlon brought up, back at the house by Intel or somebody else to find out what the hell is this guy doing. Is he just an emotionally disturbed person? Is he just some quack? Possibly. But they didn't rule that out. They did no investigation other than to gingerly stop him and quickly, in their minds, identify that wasn't a real firearm. How? I don't know. I don't know if it was like a a spongy type gun that they were able to identify right away. But even if it's plastic, that doesn't mean that it wasn't capable of firing a shot,
An
right?
ID. Where's my, right. No matter
Never
what, it's an
ID'd.
ID.
Never ID'd the guy. And again, I'm not looking to nitpick. I'm not looking to, get into White Soxing them and saying, well, they didn't complete a stop report, so they deserve discipline and blah, blah, blah. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about doing it for investigative purposes, not the CYA, purposes that, you're not going to get in trouble with some, investigative chief or some shoe fly, or ICO or some crap like that. That's not what I'm talking about.
Listen, if that happened, Housing for Life mentioned something. If it happened back in the old days, if he didn't comply, he would have been at central booking with the old Bronx turban. And so, I mean, that was terrible. So, hey, listen, the point being is, if any officers that watch our show, take a look at it and talk about what we're saying and talk about it amongst yourselves. This is where I said that the job is failing at training you. So if that's the case, you need to train yourself and take a look. And I always say this, and this is, I guess something I shouldn't say, but is that if you watch people's mistakes, you should learn from them. It's better to learn from other people's mistakes than your own. That's the catcher. But look at, and don't be afraid to critique things that happen. If I was the squad sergeant or the platoon commander, not to call them out, but hey, we have video. Let's take a look at this. You can even, put that on department training video, black out their faces or whatever, and show everybody this is not what we want to do. Yeah, and I agree with Robert Murphy. It was the old stop at Lincoln, because you know what? Cops never went to Lincoln Hospital. Me and my partner would always say, if I ever fall on the steps of Lincoln Hospital and injure myself, drive me over to Jacoby, because I'm not going to Lincoln Hospital. So perps went to Lincoln, cops went to Jacoby. They still might. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, it's I just really that's one of the worst ones that I've seen in a very, very long time.
Yeah, that was terrible. So but I hope they learn from it. That's what I hope. That, and I hope, like I said, they learn from it, other people learn from it, so maybe we should just go briefly into the three chiefs, real brief, if we can do that, and then we'll.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
sure. So recently, at the end of Black History Month, the NYPD put out a post with an embedded New York Post article, and it said, standing on the shoulders of giants, Chief Edwards, Gurley, and McIntosh are helping inspire a new generation of Black NYPD officers. We honor these borough commanders, leading the way as the NYPD now has more Black assistant chiefs than ever before. Now, listen, I'm not sitting here and I'm not taking away anything from these three specific chiefs or their capabilities or anything like that. That's not what this is. That's not what this is about. I think what this comes back to is a subject that's been talked about over and over again. Is, why does it have to be highlighted when, if you have merit-based promotions, why does anyone's race have to be highlighted and talk about, the difficulties of how difficult it is to get promoted to that a very prestigious rank that neither one of us attained?
No, like, I don't know. I've knew about Gurley, I think, coming up in the ranks, but I don't know any of them personally, and I truthfully don't have anything to say negatively about them. I don't know what they've done to attain those ranks. So maybe they've done some really good work.
Listen, I worked with Ben Gurley. Ben
Uh-huh.
Gurley came to the Housing Bureau as the Housing Bureau, the executive officer of the Bureau when I was the borough commander at Housing Bronx, Queens. And, you know, I was allegedly next up for promotion to chief. And then I got a phone call from the chief of housing at the time. And he told me, hey, Ron, listen, you know, Ben's going to be up next because, listen, chief, I get it. He's the XO of the borough, of the bureau. He should outrank me. He should be the next person in the housing bureau to get promoted, right? It wound up being a bullshit conversation. The chief lied to me. I don't want to mention Dave Barrett's name, but I'm gonna. You know, he told me that, you know, nobody, when he called me up when they changed the, and again, I'm getting off topic, but it's kind of on topic because it's in line with how people get promoted and whatnot, right? So Ben absolutely deserved to get promoted because of the position he was in over me. And he's a very competent guy. I'm not taking anything away from Ben's promotion. And I said at the time, he should be promoted before me. But then when I'm told by the chief of housing that, you know, when they changed the rules that the bureau chief had to recommend people to go for interviews for the promotion. And if the people that put in for the promotion aren't selected for interviews, they had to call and explain for transparency why you weren't selected. And I was told nobody bends up and nobody went for an interview, which was a bold-faced lie because there was another white housing borough commander in Manhattan that when I had this conversation with him, he's like, oh, I had my interview on Tuesday. So he just lied because I found out later that he wasn't fond of me and another executive in the housing bureau at the time, and used to say some things once he was removed and basically put over into internal affairs before he retired. He would say things openly at the office that he didn't care for me because when I was the Bronx Queens borough commander and he was the commanding officer of Queens South, I didn't go to his meetings. Be a man and tell me you're not getting an interview. But tell me nobody got an interview, and I find out the guy down the hall from me got an interview, and you know, winds up getting promoted, which I wouldn't have knocked because the guy was in the housing bureau longer than me anyway. But anyway, I digress. I don't usually like to throw shade or anything, but that one is a little personal. But again, my original point is, you know, I've come across all three of them. I worked with Ben Gurley. I know Ben Gurley is a competent guy. And again, not taking anything away from their accomplishments or their promotions.
Yeah, like I was saying, I don't know any of them. I've only come across one of them. I'm not saying, like I said, they may have done things that brought them to their rank, but I just think that you don't need to say that you got promoted or there's not enough blacks at a particular rank or anything else, because you know what? You don't get to that rank unless you pass 3 tests. So if you pass 3 tests, that's fine. Then you can get moved up to those ranks. I myself have been a victim of people jumping over me that I felt were not as competent as me, but I accepted it. And should I have spoken up? Yeah, I should have. Should we all have spoken up? Absolutely, because it's bullshit. Because these people are, you know, it's all favoritism, it's nepotism, it's ridiculous. And but you know, I understand, you know, saying this because of Black History Month, but don't say. I think one of them made mention that it was hard road. Give me a break.
Right. So,
it was not. All right. I worked for a lot of you know, Black chiefs. I worked for Black inspectors. And I have no problem with them. They were hard workers or whatever. But there was also incompetent blacks, and there were incompetent whites too that I didn't want to work with. So don't tell me, you know, you had to do this and you put in hard work, like he says in the last paragraph, right? If you were put in hard work and you see people pass you, you would get kind of discouraged. Well, yeah, absolutely. But that happens to everybody. It doesn't matter what color you are. That happens all the time. Okay.
All right.
And
So
you know what?
Go ahead.
I was just going to say that it's ridiculous to even say that. You know what? What matters the most is your competency level and your ability to do the job, and especially at that rank, have people that trust you to lead them and take care of them. But to blanket it and say that they weren't put in, to put in that position because they were black or they didn't get promoted when they back. Well, I mean, I know you have a graphic that you'll bring up, but and the other thing is what if there was a White History Month, right? What would happen? What would happen if there was a White History Month? I mean, we'd all be in trouble. So
listen, we say that every time when these things come up, that if statements are made, and whites are singled out for a reason, that people would be saying that it's some type of supremacy or some type of discrimination or whatever the case may be. Again, I want to emphasize, I'm not taking away. I don't know the other two very well. I do know Ben, and I know his capabilities and his abilities, and he's a competent person, a competent leader. But what I find a little disingenuous is, like you said, the statement about, if you're, getting promoted was difficult, he said, and it was discouraging to put in the work without getting the reward. I'm sorry. I was promoted to captain in 2003. And I got promoted to deputy inspector in 2010. And if you look at Ben Gurley, and you look, when I was a captain, he was a police officer. He didn't make sergeant until 2005. He made captain in 2012. And 9 years later, 9 years later, became a deputy inspector from captain. 9 years after he became captain, he's an assistant chief. He was a captain for 4 years. He was an deputy inspector for a little under 2 years. He was an inspector for 2 years. And he was a deputy chief for less than 2 years. Not a lot of people flew past him. I'm sorry. And I like Ben. I would consider him a friend. But to say that, and then you look at his promotion standings, I'm sorry. And if you look at, Aaron Edwards, again, he was a police officer when I was a captain. He made captain in 2018. 7 years later, he's an assistant chief. 7 years. From captain to assistant chief. And do I have the other one? I do. Let me pull it up. So that was Gurley, and I'm sorry.
Well, our friend Eric Tim, right? Rocket Fuel.
Right. So here, this one's a little, Christopher McIntosh, a little bit longer, right? So he was 4 years, 2012, right? It took him 13 years to make it to assistant chief. He spent 4 years as a captain. He spent 3 years as a deputy inspector. And then he spent 3.5 years before he made deputy chief. And then 2 years before he made assistant chief. So 13 years. I mean, but still. And again, they didn't all make those statements. That was Ben's statement. So that's where I have the issue, where you're highlighting these people. Good for them, but when you look at the demographics, and I didn't go deep into the demographics with everything.
Well, let me just say something else too. Well, hold on. Though I just want to say, again, we don't know what they did or if there's any reason why they got promoted faster than any of us or whatever. So, I mean, it took me 7 years to get DI or whatever. So, I mean, the point being is there's also positions, right? So I'll say like, if you're, for an example, just a CO of aviation and you suddenly become a deputy chief and haven't really done anything, all you did was fly around in helicopters. Is that a reason to be promoted? No, absolutely not. Not in my eyes. So, I mean, just because you're in specific positions too, it doesn't necessarily mean, why were you put in that position? Like you had mentioned that he was the XO of the borough. Okay. I was the XO of
Bureau.
special operation. Yeah, I was the XO of special operations, and was a bureau at that time. All right. Harry Whedon was a 3-star. I was still an inspector. They brought a 1-star into ESU. Okay. Then later on they brought a 1-star in, and I finally got promoted. And then they made ESU a 2-star, which is still a 2-star. And then they bring that. And then when after I left, they made the CO of aviation a 1-star. All right. So it doesn't matter what position you are. And to me, all right, it just seems like you knew people and they hooked you up. So that doesn't help anything. Tell me what you did. Tell me what you did to help the job. I can tell you what I did for ESU. I got them state-of-the-art equipment, the Bearcat, the Bear with the ramp. That was the Mars ramp, the mobile accessory ramp system. I helped get that through the counterterrorism with some of the confidential codes. There was other things I did. So, and I'm not saying I did it on my own. I absolutely unequivocally had a lot of ESU guys help me, get that. And they helped me get my rank. But tell me what you did. So I'm sorry. It's not, I mean, it's great that you made to assistant chief. That's perfect. I just think that statement is derogatory and is nasty. And the same statement is, when I first came on, there weren't a lot that looked like me. Yeah, I agree that there weren't a lot, but that was the nature of the beast at the time. That's who was taking the job. So, I mean, I just think it fuels a little bit of anger to people that have worked and done and thought they did everything right and still, like yourself, left on the sidelines, and it's not right.
No, listen, again, they're being highlighted. It's a topic. It's a topic of conversation that happens all the time. And it just seems to be getting made worse by them, pardon the word, promoting it with that X post. The only real demographic thing that has come out is this. It's a little bit older, from a police management institute, Columbia Business School police management school study where they talked about promotions by race and gender, longest to shortest. The average year is a captain being promoted to deputy inspector. And again, this is older data. I'm sure it's skewed even a little bit more now, but it goes from, black female captains making it to deputy inspector in 2.9 years, all the way up to Asian males who took the longest at 7.2 years, with white males being 6.9 years, and black males being second with 3.3 years for the first promotion. So, the job is different. The demographics of the job, it's a minority majority in the police department now when you look at it. So, I don't know. I just hate seeing those posts.
No, I mean, they're not necessary. I mean, it's nice if they want to say, hey, it's Black History Month, and these three male blacks have made it to assistant chief. Great. Don't say how hard it was. Don't cry and moan, because it wasn't that hard. And you know what? If you saw other people get passed over you, well, guess what? We all did. So that's just the nature of the beast. You know what I tell you? If you want to be a boss on a job, study. Take the sergeant exam, take the lieutenant's exam, captain's exam, and then then, you know, and one of them said, I didn't know the road to take. I had to ask my mentors. No, there's a specific road to take if you want to get promoted right away. Everybody knows it. It's not a mystery. Okay. I took a road where I wasn't going to get promoted right away. I took a road where I was going to be happy being a patrol captain in an emergency service unit, which I was the most happiest I was on this job. So that's my choice. You know, if you want to become promoted, you become a CO of a command. Okay. And you know what? I guarantee you, if you're competent, right, at the sergeant, lieutenant, and captain rank, you will get a command. Okay. So I'm sorry. Yeah. What's the road to promotion? Exactly. One bottle after another one. Yeah. And it's pretty much out there. So, you know, but what is the real road to promotion? So is it nepotism and cronyism? Is it getting, you know, your friend Jeff Madry to get you promoted, or Eric Adams to get you promoted? Well, we'll see. So I don't know. Oh, hey, listen, somebody became the chief of special operations, and at one point he came in at a lower rank than me, and then became a higher rank than me, and then all of a sudden got a second one. But whatever, that's just the nature of the beast. I told you the story when they said, hey, they said to Whedon, hey, how about, who do you want to become a 2-star chief in your division? Well, I think Rob Lukach would be good because I have a 1-star chief in ESU, and then I could, you know, he's a 2-star. It's easier. Yeah, that's not the name we're looking for. We'll tell you the name, Harry. And that's how it went. So, but hey, was my fault? Yeah. You know what? Should I spoken up? Should I put my sanity on the line and said no BS or whatever? I could, but you know what? There's also no strength and unity in the upper echelons of the department, right? There's no balls, in my opinion. Everybody's out for themselves. Nobody sticks together. You know, when Eric and John talk about getting rid of every chief, I don't agree. I don't agree getting rid of every chief, but you need to get rid of the upper echelons that set down the policy, because all as a chief, inspector, duty inspector, captain, you're not a policy maker. You're a policy enforcer. But the people that make the policy, the 3 stars, the 4-star, the first step, the police commissioner, wipe them out, because their policy sucks and the policy gets all the way pushed down. There needs to be something to be done so to protect the men and women and not protect the policy of the idiots up on top. That's my rant.
All right. So one battle after another one, formerly known as quite a few names on the show, is asking, what do you have to do as a CO? It's time since the truth shall set me free. Listen, I've said it all along. Be competent, be familiar, work your ass off, and hopefully you get noticed. The reality, like Rob said, is a lot of it has to do with cronyism, especially in the last few administrations. We've talked about it ad nauseum. No reason to, you know, we're 2 hours and 44 minutes into it. So, you know, my path is just go there, give it 100%, be competent, know what you're doing, put forth a plan to address the conditions, and you have to learn how to pivot, give credit where credit is due. You know, I think that those that do nothing but try to self-promote themselves and take credit for everything else, people see right through. And do they get promoted? Sometimes they do. Do they get promoted for the right reasons? Not really. But, you know.
Is that a question for the executive perspective there?
What's that?
The one you got up on the board. What do we have to do to get COs? Can that count?
No, well, we were just talking about that. We can get into that. We can get into that if you want now. We can go into Ask an Executive, where Ron and Rob answer questions from the chat. This is where we'll take your questions on or off topic in the chat. And a lot of times people don't have the ability to have access to a chief of police and an inspector of police. Here you have 2 retired executives. Yes, executives. from the NYPD who will answer your questions and give you those answers. If you want to ask those questions while you're offline because you are possibly an active member of the service and you don't want to use your name and you don't know how to change your name every 14 days like some other people on here, you can send your questions via email to us at theexecutiveperspective@gmail.com or DM us on X at exec perspective. The DM is open to everybody. We could ask your questions. We will keep your identity confidential. If we don't think that the question's appropriate for the show, we will respond to you anyway. And if it's appropriate, we'll bring it up. We'll copy and paste it, keeping your identity out, and bring it up on the next show. So we'll leave that up as we go on. And did you catch any during the show?
No, but I think one better left another goes, this is what do you call it? The tap dancing session.
Okay, he loved us earlier. Now it's a tap dancing session. And I think he's out of name changes for the week. So I think we'll we'll see him on the shows as one battle after another. And not starting with Sergeant like he was on Tom's show on Tuesday.
He did ask what Ron and Rob, what did you have for dinner? Oh, I didn't eat dinner yet.
Yeah, I didn't have dinner either. So if there's are there any questions out there?
Housing for Life has one at 1951 hours. Ever tempted to resist promotion if you have a good gig? That's a good question.
Personally, no, but I do know of some people at the lower ranks than the executive ranks. Kind of at the executive ranks, you don't know you're getting promoted. You just get a phone call. If promotions are on Thursday or Friday, you usually get a phone call on Wednesday or Tuesday. If you're really embedded with the right people, you might know a couple of days before that, but they don't usually let you know until a couple of days before, and you don't always really know what's coming. So you don't have like Rob said, Rob took a position where he knew that it's rare to next to impossible in that exact position without moving over to SOD or up into the office at administrative position, that he was going to stay a captain on patrol. And that was a choice that he made while he was an executive officer. If he stayed on a different path and went to be a commanding officer, it was a path that would have probably put him on a faster path to promotion. Not necessarily, because it took me from 2003 to 2010 to get promoted. And I was the commanding officer of 2 details and 2 precincts. Actually, I was the first precinct I got promoted at the 111 just before I left. All right.
Yeah, no, I mean, I knew a lot of guys that, especially police officers and sergeants in the emergency service unit, that didn't want to take promotions because they didn't want to lose their gig. Because being in emergency service was pretty prestigious. So the good thing is that when you become if you're a cop or a detective in the emergency service unit and you get promoted to sergeant, yes, you got to go out and spend some time. But then when they were picking up sergeants or lieutenants, you're pretty much going to be the top choice because of what your previous experience and all your training. So, but I myself was never given the opportunity to say no, and I was lucky enough to stay in the positions and within the special operations division at the time for all my promotions. So had they told me, I know there was a couple guys I know there was one captain that was offered to be the captain for the mounted unit. He was emergency service captain, and he turned it down because he didn't want to leave the emergency service unit and become the CO of mounted. So yeah, it happens, but not specifically for myself.
Yeah. And Name of the Week is saying, Ron, the only thing that sucks is when we met at Forest Park, I couldn't tell you it was me. I guess he's talking about when we had a rally for a mayoral candidate. So, listen, anybody sees me out there, approach me, say hello. I don't hold anything personal. I'm not going to do anything. You think I'm going to find out who you are and I'm going to make phone calls to get you in trouble, whatever the case may be? Come on. And I don't hate you. I hate some of the stupid things that you say, you know? And here's a question. Is anything I say or comment on not realistic? Yes, 100% it's not realistic. You do whine, you do complain that you have to work sometimes. And you say because people expect you to work, being a law enforcement officer, that you might have to enforce some laws. You call it a quota and you say that you're getting trouble, that if you don't write if you come to work and do nothing all day, you deserve to get in trouble. That's all I'm saying. And I'll be at an event. I'll talk about it next week. I'll be at an event in the 110 precinct in a couple of weeks. I'll bring it up next week on the show. Feel free to come by and visit. Say hello. Say hello to me. Any pizza recommendations in Staten Island? Goodfellas was good. We went to Goodfellas. There's only one left on Highland Boulevard in Great Hills.
Yeah, that's the only place I know. I don't know any others.
All right. If we have no other questions, we'll make it a short one. We'll get out of here. Just one thing I went past in the beginning was we want to let me take this other stuff down. We do want to say congratulations. Yesterday, co-chief chaplains was sworn in, making it official that retired Cardinal Timothy Dolan and the Reverend A.R. Bernard from the Christian Cultural Center were sworn in as the co-chief chaplains. We had spoken about that a couple of weeks ago when that was announced that it was going to happen. It officially happened. So now they are the spiritual leaders of the NYPD. So we congratulate them on that appointment. And also what we brought up when we were talking when the Reverend Dr. Alvin Cass had passed away, that there was no rabbi. So the fourth rabbi to become a chaplain in the NYPD, the New York NYPD Shaman Society had posted congratulations to the newest Jewish NYPD chaplain. That's Rabbi Mons. I hope I'm saying his first name correctly. Kogan, and he is from the Hillcrest Jewish Center in Fresh Meadow, Queens. So congratulations, and he will be the new Jewish spiritual leader on that. Anything else, Rob?
Well, 92 Charlie says Pal Joey's on Staten Island, but I'm not familiar with that.
That's a good place.
As far as the chaplains go, I found it a little peculiar, and somebody had mentioned it on Facebook as well. Why they weren't in uniform when they got promoted to the 3-star chiefs that they are. They were in their regular garb, but it was kind of odd.
Housing for Life wants to know, did I walk up the stairs or take the elevator at PSA 7? I don't even know where the elevator was. I never took the elevator in PSA 7. So I walked up the stairs. It's only one flight. Anything else? That's about it. All right, so let's wrap it up. 2 hours 54 minutes into this. It's amazing we talked about going to an hour and a half show, right? Not for this one specifically, but just in general. So all right. So now tomorrow, normally we don't say tomorrow, but tomorrow on the New York's Finest Retired and Filtered podcast, you have the Friday Roundtable with John, Eric, and Marlon. Today, wait, I had it. Hold on. Sorry about that. I had it. Where did I put it? Yesterday, they did an interview of a political candidate I'm sorry, I thought I had the thumbnail, but I don't have the thumbnail up. If you throw that in there, Mullen, I appreciate it. But they'll be back tomorrow, talking about all the things that have been going on that they didn't get to because they had an interview on Wednesday. They're going to be getting back to doing Wednesday interviews. Monday and Friday, they'll be talking about local politics and the goings on in the NYPD. It was Greg Hatch. Thank you, Tommy Joyce. Greg Hatch was the political candidate. Very on point, I thought, very open, very honest. And he is, for the most part, self-funding his campaign because he doesn't want to be beholden to anyone, for New York 3. So, and Terry's saying Lee's Tavern. Lee's Tavern in Dungan Hills is another place for a good bar pie.
We asked Mikey G's asked, a great friend of the podcast asked a question in 1959. The questions read, do you think the mayor is single-handedly trying to destroy the NYPD by getting rid of SRG and hopes to opening a door for a successful terrorist attack? I don't know if he's looking for a terrorist attack, but he's definitely looking to destroy the NYPD. And I think that by getting rid of the SRG will definitely aid in a successful terrorist attack. So I that's what I think.
Yeah, I don't know that he's doing it for that specific reason, but we obviously, we've spoken about it. We disagree completely with this dismantling and doing away with the strategic response group. Do they need to be retooled? Maybe that's another discussion. But all right. So then they'll be back. John, Eric, and Marlon will be back again on Monday. So Friday 08:05, Monday 08:05, Wednesday they're going to be doing interviews, and then Tuesday at 19:05, 7:05, we have Tommy Joyce and Pete Viselli, who bring a different twist, a twist of lime or maybe a twist of lemon to the show, to the network, and they bring leaders from throughout the country, and it's just a phenomenal show. And what they do is not just NYPD. They bring leaders, they bring investigators. They talk about topics and notorious crimes that everybody is aware of and that they're spoken about from a firsthand perspective. We've been talking throughout the entire show. We talked about a lot in the beginning about Morgan Wright, who was on the show on Tuesday night. You got to go back. You got to watch this episode. It was the first time that the Templar Tavern went to 3 hours. It's jam-packed with information. Again, personal knowledge, firsthand knowledge. He lived it. He lived through it. And, again, he was in Iran as a child when his father was in the military. He was there during the regime takeover, during the hostage take. And he's got really great information. Go back, watch that show. Again, I was invited on because he was speaking and he was talking about his coin collection, and just I was so impressed with him that I offered out my challenge coin that I had made up at Housing Bronx, Queens. And now it's kind of been spoken about. It's going back and forth that it was the first virtual exchange of a challenge coin. So Tommy Joyce, who's in the chat right now, and he's laughing. He's saying Pete whined about it all day that it went 3 hours because they don't like to go over 2 hours. But let's do I'll show you a real quick video that Tom sent me from when I joined them last night and did this virtual exchange.
Share with you his coin virtually, and then we'll do an exchange and we'll do an intro for you guys after the fact.
Absolutely.
As someone who worked as a housing cop in the Bronx and was part of that
Borough, Bronx, Queens family that is a point to cherish.
Pete, you got one too. Don't worry. So yeah, so I'll be sending out those coins. As a matter of fact, I got them right here, ready for them. Here's the other side. Here's the other side of the coin. That wasn't in the video. But I'll be sending out the coins to Morgan and to Pete. They'll be going out in the mail. Yeah. Next week on the 10-4 Tavern, you have hostage negotiations, former commanding officer, the longest running commanding officer of the hostage negotiations team, Lieutenant Jack Cambria, Gentleman Jack. Anybody that's ever known or come across Jack, they know that he is quite the gentleman, very professional, and now he goes out around the country and talks about hostage negotiations and de-escalations and things like that. So make sure Tuesday at 7:05 p.m. you join Tom and Pete and Gentleman Jack on the next 10-4 Tavern, and we'll be back. Rob, anything before we close out?
Yeah, they're asking in the chat, Robert Murphy 2 and NYC. They're asking me if I have one of your challenge coins. No, I don't. And now you know what? I don't want one. All right. I'm sorry. Forget about it, pal. All right. I've only been doing this 4 episodes with you. I've been on and off, sometimes 3 hours talking to you while we're not even on the podcast. And I didn't get a challenge coin. All right, go ahead, give it out. Give it out to your friends, my friend. And there, go ahead. I don't want it. No excuses.
I didn't know you collected coins.
No, that's all right. That's all right.
We've talked about these coins.
I don't want it.
We've talked about these coins in the past on the show. You didn't.
You weren't giving them out. You weren't giving them out. But anyway, whatever. Anyway,
I didn't know you wanted one. I didn't know you wanted. I know you collect coins. A lot of people don't collect them.
Gentleman Jack was also an emergency service guy. So
yes, he was.
Keep that
yes, he was. And they actually sent me. He sent me a picture of him walking the VZ Bridge. But I'll let them save that for their show.
Yep,
but,
great man.
Good.
You gotta watch that. You gotta watch that.
Gotta watch that.
That guy could talk you out of. He could talk you out of anything. What a competent man. Great guy.
Yeah. And then we'll be back next Wednesday at our regular scheduled time. At 5:05 p.m. on Wednesday. So until then, thanks for watching. Thanks for sticking with us. Thanks for the thoughts and prayers for the family. Sorry about yesterday. Appreciate it. Appreciate you, Rob, for adjusting your schedule and coming on tonight. Thank you so much. And we'll see you next week. Until then, everybody, just be safe.